Across the ages, tales spoke of legendary heroes, those who, in other words, were nothing short of cheaters, yet still managed to build kingdoms. There were also those whose sheer presence was enough to instill fear, freezing an enemy with merely the mention of their name. From these powerful figures rose kings, establishing vast empires that shaped the world. Others became the heads of immense organizations, their influence spreading far and wide. And from time immemorial, there were those whose tales were sung for ages, known simply as the Demon Kings. Yet, as he considered these grand titles and histories, Davy Orwain could only feel a profound sense of dismissal. A scoff escaped him, as he muttered, "Pathetic. They can just go F***CK themselves." In response, a deep voice questioned, "So your name is all that matters?" A faint memory flickers, a childlike figure lying amidst rubble, a giant hand reaching down, as a voice echoes the grim realization of returning to a personal hell, all to save another. Meanwhile, in a desolate, rocky expanse, a blue-haired woman and Daphne exchange bewildered glances, wondering aloud what they are witnessing. The memory shifts to a figure plummeting into a fiery abyss, a vow of revenge against those who cast them down, those who claimed it was for their own good. These are the scars, the deep wounds slowly accumulated within his very soul, etched by the shadows of countless figures standing over him. Now, Davy Orwain walks through this desolate place, the very Hall of Heroes, a landscape as barren as his past. His eyes glow with a fierce, crimson light, a chilling promise escaping his lips that he will bid them farewell soon. This is Davy, standing tall and resolute, his presence commanding attention. Elsewhere, the blue-haired woman frets over his youth, regretting having allowed him to go alone, while Daphne, her purple hair framing a furious expression, demands to know why she let him venture out by himself. Both women then look down at a small, indistinct object, the blue-haired woman asking what he managed to acquire. As fragmented memories flicker, a voice shouts, "You think you're so cool," even when, while another cries out, "Little bro." The struggle intensifies, with one figure declaring, "I'm just gonna," as another demands, "Unhand me," and a third insists, "Stay still, I'll get you out." Meanwhile, a pensive expression crosses Davy's face, a soft sound escaping him as he gazes into the distance. From a grand balcony, Daphne and the blue-haired female watch with concern, their expressions mirroring the gravity of the situation as a soft amph escapes one of them. Davy's eyes, now glowing with a faint crimson light, harden as he declares, "Whatever. Goodbye, Davy." He turns his back on the opulent hall, his resolve unwavering, a silent promise echoing, "For as long as you live." His gaze remains fixed, a deep intensity in his crimson eyes, as his bare feet carry him forward, stepping away from his past. He walks away from a crowd of smiling faces, a symbolic farewell to those he leaves behind, his journey now truly his own. He finds himself adrift in a fragmented memory, a voice echoing through the void, proposing a deal. As the words fade, a swirling darkness consumes the scene, giving way to a blinding flash of light that pierces the gloom. The light crackles with raw energy, before dissolving into shimmering green particles. Slowly, the abstract vision gives way to reality, as a steady drip of green liquid flows into his arm, the life-giving fluid shimmering faintly. His hand, connected to the floor, rests on a soft bed. And he jolts awake, cursing the stiffness that grips his entire body. "Damn it, my body is totally stiff." Davy struggles to regain consciousness, his eyes refusing to open properly, a dull ache permeating his entire being. Eventually, he gives up the fight, resigning himself to the lingering discomfort. As his vision slowly clears, he takes in the opulent surroundings of a lavish room, his gaze settling on a framed portrait depicting himself alongside two other familiar figures, a woman and a beast folk, a memory stirring within him of his identity as the abandoned, weak prince. He recognizes the face staring back from the picture, the name echoing in his mind, Davy Elrond. A map of the Rowan Kingdom, a small realm to the north, confirms his place in this world, where the firstborn of the royal family is traditionally known as the abandoned prince, a title he now understands applies to him. Looking back at the portrait, he confirms once more, that is indeed him, Davy Elrond. Lying in the lavish bed, a sense of contentment washes over him, realizing he is a prince, and despite his perceived weakness compared to his previous life, he can now indulge in luxury. However, as he surveys the somewhat dated and dusty room, a new thought crosses his mind, causing him to retract his earlier statement about luxury. He ponders why he was so weak in his past life, a memory surfacing of Daphne and Hercules in a vibrant garden, where he once believed sheer power was the only path to strength. It was because of that previous existence, he realizes, that he failed to grasp the true significance of being the legitimate prince, a dozen chances slipping through his grasp. Such weakness, he concludes, would only make him a target for his enemies, leading to abandonment from his own family. The serene image of Daphne and Hercules remains, a silent testament to the past he now seeks to overcome. Lying in his bed, Davy decides it's time to put an end to these lingering thoughts. His immediate priority, he declares, is to fully recover his body, a strained cough escaping him. Everything else, he firmly believes, can be dealt with later, a determined grunt accompanying his resolve. With a deep breath, he silently addresses those who wronged him, urging them to wait. He vows to face them all, not as his former weak self, but with this newly recovered body, the vision of Daphne and Hercules once again appearing before him. A memory flickers, showing Daphne, her hair a rich reddish brown, riding a horse through a verdant landscape. Then, another figure emerges from the past, a blond man with a sharp gaze, declaring that something has been trained by heroes for 1,000 years. A foot descends softly, a quiet sound accompanying its landing. Then, a voice breaks the silence. So this is where you were. Davy sits alone, his gaze fixed downwards, a quiet question escaping him. He lies prone, a hand reaching towards him, as a voice echoes. They said I was the most powerful human. The voice continues, dismissive, forgetting me? We'll see if you can still say that. Daphne remains a silent observer in the background. The figure leans in, their words sharp. Just to be confirmed with my own eyes, I came all the way here. Davy, still on the ground, feels a profound sense of loss. He looks up, his face etched with a question. You don't even know. How old am I? Hercules' stern face fills the view, repeating, I don't care about your strength, as Davy's own thoughts echo his despair. Davy reflects on those who were blessed with innate power, living their lives with pride, and wonders if his companion already knew such things. A scoff escapes him as he stares down at the pathetic creature, thinking, don't think that I haven't been through hell every day and night. Suddenly, a large hand clamps down on his head, pulling him upward as a booming voice declares, cheer up, newbie. Davy cries out in surprise as the beast folk continues, I've decided to lend you a hand. To begin with, there's no reason for you to be so weak. I'll make you stronger. With a determined smile, the beast folk adds, I will handle your royal family now. He then introduces himself. My name is Hercules. Davy's mind races, processing the name and the implications, wondering if this is the prince of the empire, a hunter, and what this talk of survival truly means. Kneeling before him and taking his hand, Hercules declares, from today, you're my disciple. I'll teach you everything I know. Davy is still reeling as Hercules stands, now in an open field, and reiterates his plan. Since it's like this, let's go hunting. I'll teach you everything I know. Don't worry about your royal family. I'll handle it. A sudden, disoriented cry echoes, followed by a sharp gasp. As a pained groan escapes, as if from a deep slumber, leaving only the sound of ragged, desperate breaths filling the opulent chamber. And four drips steadily infuses a glowing green liquid. And Davy's eyes flutter open, a dawning realization crossing his face as he murmurs, that's right. A long sigh escapes him, confirming his own thoughts. I've really returned. Outside, a magnificent castle stands under a starlit sky, its grandeur reflected in the ornate window frames within. He wonders how long he can continue to sleep like this, noting that the maid who came into the room is the only one attending to him. Indeed, the maid is the only person who has entered his room, and she seems to be muttering to herself, as if this is a normal occurrence. He considers the four drip still connected to him, a reminder of how long he's been in a coma. A scoff escapes him as he thinks, just one maid? The room is quiet, save for a soft rustling sound. And he realizes the maid has left. Ah, that's right. He muses, believing there should be at least one more person to care for him. A soft thump echoes as he shifts in the bed. A sigh escaping him as he reaches out, acknowledging his lingering weakness. I don't have the strength to move freely, he admits, but a flicker of determination crosses his face. He finds a small victory in his current state, thinking, I can at least stand up on my own. This should be good enough for now. A young woman sits up in bed, her gaze fixed on her phone, knowing there's something crucial she needs to verify. With a soft click, her fingers navigate to the calendar app, a silent question hanging in the air. What is the current date? A small, glowing orb rests in her hand, a silent testament to the passage of time, as the stark reality dawns on her. 6 years have passed. Her eyes widen in disbelief, the full weight of the 6 years since her last conscious moment crashing down upon her. The phone slips from her grasp, her mind consumed by a torrent of chaotic, bloody images. Visions of monstrous figures and a desolate, blood-soaked landscape flash before her eyes, a horrifying glimpse into the world she left behind. Her face contorts in distress, a plate held loosely in her hand, as the words echo in her mind. 6 years have passed. Her eye, now glowing with a fierce red light, reflects the intensity of her resolve. Lying back in bed, her expression hardens, vowing never to return to her former pathetic state and determined to recover her strength swiftly. A young woman, clad in a simple robe, slowly extends her hand, her gaze distant as if just emerging from a deep slumber. Suddenly, a soft blue glow envelopes her form, and a system message flashes, indicating a profound restoration and healing process is underway. Her eyes snap open, wide with a dawning realization, a soft gasp escaping her lips as she takes in her surroundings. Closing her eyes once more, she seems to concentrate, perhaps processing the sudden influx of energy or memories. Finally, fully awake, she looks down at her arm, noticing the four drip with a startled cry, utterly bewildered by her current predicament. A pair of hands rise, palms open, as a mentor begins to explain the nature of a profound force. As a glowing orb hovers before him, The cloaked figure states that this holy power is not something young Davy can wield. Holding the radiant energy in his own hands, Davy struggles to comprehend, unable to grasp the reason behind his mentor's words. The mentor continues, explaining that what he truly wishes to convey is that Davy simply lacks the necessary quality. A brilliant golden light flares, illuminating the small figure of the prince as the voice clarifies that the power of the gods blesses only those who are pure and righteous. This sacred power is bestowed upon those chosen by the gods, requiring a pure heart and unwavering belief in the divine to wield it. Though Davy's heart may be pure, he ultimately lacks the profound faith needed to command such power. Meanwhile, a young woman with dark hair, lying in bed, expresses her irritation, demanding that whatever is happening simply stop being so annoying. The problem had been growing steadily over time, and now, she found herself unable to move her body, a worry gnawing at her. However, just like before, Daphne struggled to stand up, her own body feeling like a foreign object, prompting her to scold herself not to be so lazy. It was incredibly annoying, she thought, as she tried to command her body to restore itself, but nothing happened. She pleaded for her healing magic to activate, but it remained unresponsive. This was the most basic healing ability she knew, yet it failed her. She urged herself to move, her frustration mounting with each failed attempt. Still, she persisted, pleading for the restore, heal spell to work, surrounded by the scattered remnants of her efforts. She slumped against the bed, a sigh escaping her lips, thinking that normally she would just give up, but something compelled her to continue. With renewed determination, she reached out, a silent hey, echoing in her mind. Her eyes narrowed with fierce resolve, as she commanded herself to get a move on before I kill you, a faint, glowing aura beginning to emanate from her back. Suddenly, a cascade of iridescent, glowing feathers erupted around her, shimmering with an ethereal light. She can't miss this opportunity, a triumphant nice, escaping her lips as her hand glows with renewed energy. Her body feels restored, the paralysis gone, as she lies in bed, bathed in a soft, morning light. Around her, the iridescent feathers from her earlier struggles still drift, shimmering with residual magic. A soft, ethereal glow filling the space. The light patterns dancing across the surfaces, a testament to the power she had just unleashed. With a surge of renewed strength, she reaches for the doorknob, a triumphant declaration of "I finally did it," echoing in the quiet room. Standing tall and unassisted, she surveys her bedroom, a sense of accomplishment washing over her. Stepping out, she considers the lingering weakness in her body, resolving to address it once she has fully recovered. Her gaze hardens, filled with an unwavering determination to reclaim her full strength. She stands on a balcony, gazing out at a vibrant city bathed in sunlight, a soft sound of wonder escaping her lips. The sun shines brightly in a clear blue sky, its warmth a welcome embrace. A soft smile spreads across her face, a feeling of contentment washing over her as she acknowledges the passage of time. Her lips curve into a wider grin, and she begins to raise her hand towards the sky, a faint rustle accompanying the movement. Her arm extends further, reaching for the warmth above. With a joyful cry, she stretches both arms wide, embracing the light. Her voice rings out across the city, a declaration of gratitude and freedom. A triumphant cheer escapes her, her face alight with pure happiness, followed by a soft, satisfied sigh. Later, she stands before a mirror, observing her reflection, a quiet satisfaction settling upon her features as she takes in her fully recovered form. Her eyes widen in surprise. As a maid gasps, "Prince." Quickly recovering, the maid bows deeply, apologizing profusely for her outburst. Later, a royal doctor carefully presses a stethoscope to Daphne's leg, humming thoughtfully. The elderly physician, Remus, confirms her condition, assuring her, "You're quite healthy, my one." A soft smile graces Daphne's face as she acknowledges his words. Remus, still concerned, asks if there's any part he might have missed, to which Daphne replies that she only needed to be elsewhere. Understanding dawns on the doctor's face as he simply states, "I see." She reflects on her past limitations, acknowledging that her current state, despite her dislike for it, has granted her new capabilities. The narrative shifts, focusing on a map that highlights the name Davy Alrone. This Davy, identified as the current first prince of a nation, has secured an ally in Ishard. A hand rests on a polished surface, a silent thought echoing, "How tenacious." Daphne, still observing, muses on the self-importance of those involved. As a portrait reveals the elegant Princess Harriet. Even her children are present, seemingly part of a scheme to manipulate the queen. The first prince, Davy, stands with a determined expression, while a quiet, ornate room lies empty. Princess Harriet questions the others, her voice laced with concern, wondering if they saw who shot the arrow. Later, Daphne lies awake, troubled by the incident, admitting she's unsure, as the arrow seemed to come from nowhere. Her thoughts turn to the potential victims, wondering if they had been captured. She simply can't sleep, the image of someone unseen, yet powerful, burning in her mind. Princess Harriet dismisses the possibility, stating that the case has been closed. Daphne, holding a fan, listens to the official pronouncement, her expression unreadable. Later, Davy offers comfort, telling her to come closer, as she apologizes for her sleeplessness. He then tells her he'll leave her to it, allowing her space to rest. Yet, Daphne remains preoccupied, unable to get him out of her head, while Princess Harriet suggests it would have been better if she had just gone to sleep. Daphne stirs in her sleep, a voice echoing in her mind, asking if she is disappointed that her hero has returned to her life. Meanwhile, in a different chamber, news spreads that the renowned Black Prince has been attacked and fallen into a coma. A noble dismisses the incident as nothing more than an embarrassment. He turns away from the news, commanding his attendants to follow him. Back in her room, Daphne sits up, still troubled by the incident, as the kingdom's doctors remain clueless about the Black Prince's condition, leaving her to ponder the mystery. A soft knock at her door breaks her thoughts, and she reaches out to open it. Her hand glows with a faint magical aura as she realizes the attack must have been the work of a high-ranking mage, and she can't believe they're trying to cover it up. Tossing and turning in her bed, Daphne's mind races, recalling that the culprit wasn't the daughter of the Duke of the Rowan Kingdom, and remembering the red-colored face of the true attacker, she had wanted to kill them. Yet, despite her anger, she acknowledges that her own power was nothing compared to theirs. As she lies there, Davy's comforting voice reaches her once more, urging her to come to him, to forget everything, and simply be. As he approaches a magnificent building, its ornate balcony overlooking the grounds, Davy finds himself wondering what his first meal there will be. A cascade of dark hair falls freely as Davy Orawain, now imbued with newfound abilities, floats effortlessly in a grand chamber, reflecting on the past fortnight since he first awakened his holy powers. The process of mastering them, however, proves to be quite challenging. He observes his hands, a subtle energy shimmering around them, acknowledging the difficulty of the task. Yet, with dedicated mana control training, his recovery process is progressing smoothly. Below him, Daphne and Hercules stand ready as he issues a command to bring him all the brainwashed individuals, especially the continuous and strongest ones, those discarded by the church. With his hands glowing brightly, he prepares to cleanse them. A powerful wave of blue, water-like energy erupts from his palms, spreading outward to purify. His bare feet hover just above the floor, a soft, ethereal glow emanating from them as he considers how truly convenient magic can be. His hands radiating with a similar light as he effortlessly manipulates his surroundings. The young prince finds himself musing on the simple pleasures it affords. However, his thoughts are abruptly interrupted by a sudden realization. It's Amy. A clatter echoes through the room as a covered dish tumbles from unseen hands. His eyes flash crimson with irritation as he glares at the fallen meal. The words "Here is your food," hanging in the air, now utterly ironic. A young maid, Amy, bows her head in apology, muttering about her clumsiness, but he quickly reassures her that it's fine. He repeats his reassurance, trying to convey that the mishap is truly not an issue. Amy, however, is still distraught, apologizing again as he stares in disbelief at the sheer number of plates she's managed to drop. With a determined glint in her eye, she declares she'll simply eat the food by shoveling it all in. The bowl of food, once threatening to burst, had been consumed, the magic of Restore tripling the amount she could digest. A wave of profound relief washes over Amy, clutching her stomach as if her very soul were returning to her body. And of course, the consequences of such a voracious appetite were immediately apparent, her maid uniform now straining at the seams. Davy looks on, a hint of annoyance crossing his face, as she explains her incredibly fast digestion, having consumed enough food for 3 people. He stares, utterly dumbfounded by this unexpected truth. Standing before him, Amy bows deeply, acknowledging the very hungry prince and the surprising revelation. He reassures her, telling her it's all right and that she did nothing wrong. In her hand, a crumpled note reveals her usual consumption, implying this was not an isolated incident. Amy continues to explain her unique situation, stating that the Restore magic causes her body to rapidly digest everything she consumes, leaving her constantly hungry, while Davy, listening intently, ponders the implications of her condition, realizing it's not just a simple matter of appetite, but a magical effect. She adds that it's not just about eating a lot, but about the speed at which her body processes it, making her feel as though she's always holding the fort against an empty stomach. The young prince considers her words, a faint smile playing on his lips as he finds the situation somewhat amusing, yet also a little concerning. He acknowledges the unusual nature of her predicament, noting that it's quite a sight to return to after his own experiences. Reflecting on his past, he muses that he never worried about food in his earlier life, before asking Amy about the current state of the castle's assets, shifting the conversation to their financial standing. Amy, now holding a ledger, looks down with a worried expression, lamenting that their monthly income is a mere 6,000 gold, a sum she finds incredibly low. She continues to scrutinize the financial records, questioning how they managed to earn so little this month and expressing concern that if they're barely making budget, they won't have enough to cover their expenses. Davy, now also reviewing a document, considers the gold amount, his expression thoughtful as he processes the financial reality of his current situation. Amy then asks him to confirm the amount, to which he replies with a simple, affirmative, "That's right," indicating his agreement with her assessment of the meager income. She looks directly at him, her concern evident, and asks him to double-check if he is receiving the funds properly, implying a potential issue with the collection or reporting of their income. Amy reveals, the amount I receive is, only for Davy to interject, about 1/3. Her hands clench as she gasps, what? A wave of distress washes over her face. While Davy internally scoffs, she's a total idiot. He continues his silent judgment. But this is your own fault for being so gullible. Meanwhile, Amy's thoughts race, recalling her tireless efforts to take care of him and the castle. I've been working hard for the past 5 years, by myself, even though I'm not receiving my own salary to do so. A subtle smirk plays on Davy's lips. He instructs her to take what she needs from his income, but the maid hesitates, apologizing as a mere employee. His voice firm, he reminds her that he told her not to make him repeat himself. Distraught, she can only stammer an apology, the grim reality of their situation dawning on her. They might not even have food tomorrow. Confirming her fears, he acknowledges the truth, prompting her to address him as Prince, a title he quickly dismisses as too formal. He then warns her that if she doesn't follow his orders, he will take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, Amy reflects on the small comfort of knowing there is at least one descendant left on her side. The castle itself stands as a testament to its current state, its financial management now a direct responsibility of the prince. Amy observes that the prince himself has to manage the finances, while he internally muses that his ancestors would likely be furious at such a sight. He further laments that even in this dire situation, his father has yet to make an appearance. Amy considers the gravity of the situation, imagining the chaos that would ensue if the queen were to learn of their predicament. Meanwhile, in the vast, echoing hall, Davy reflects on his father's potential shame, a heavy burden weighing on him in his mother's absence. Turning to him, Amy wonders if she needs to take on more responsibility, but Davy's stern voice cuts through her thoughts, threatening to cut her salary if she continues to question him. Amy internally protests, having decided not to act that way anymore, as he reiterates his warning. A flicker of worry crosses Amy's face, while Davy maintains a resolute, unyielding gaze. Finally, he states his expectation to work with her, to which Amy, after a moment of hesitation, reluctantly agrees. A woman with lavender hair and a green jacket delivers an apology, her expression regretful, as she explains that the funds that have been accounted for are impossible to use. Later, walking through a grand hall, Davy considers the implications, realizing he's been directed to the financial department. His suspicions are confirmed. They are indeed looking down on him, treating him with disdain, and he vows not to let them get away with it. The lavender-haired woman maintains a composed, almost apologetic demeanor, her expression unchanging as she delivers the difficult news. Suddenly, Davy stirs awake on a plush couch, a single word escaping his lips, a quiet, frustrated, hey. His eyes now glow a furious crimson, his voice laced with disbelief and anger as he demands, are you messing with me? He listens as Daphne, flanked by 2 guards, delivers the shocking news, her voice barely a whisper as she asks for clarification. The ledger reveals a grim truth. The expected 500 gold is nowhere to be found, leaving less than 100. This drastic shortfall means the estate's upkeep is impossible, and even the staff's wages are now in jeopardy. The realization dawns on him, and a deep frustration begins to simmer. Daphne and the other servants look on with concern. As the full extent of the neglect becomes clear, the garden is overgrown, and the very foundations of the estate are crumbling. Whispers circulate among the staff, wondering if he had been extorted, but Daphne quickly silences them, demanding to know how this situation could possibly be explained. Overwhelmed by the dire news, he turns and walks away, a heavy sigh escaping him. Later, sitting alone in his room, the maid Amy approaches him, agreeing that the situation makes no sense. Amy addresses him respectfully, while he internally questions what kind of prince would even need to scrutinize his own finances. A stern, older woman, likely a financial manager, looks down with an air of expectation, ready to hear what explanation he might offer. Her thoughts drift to the mounting issues caused by the financial department's mismanagement, a place she considers to be in utter disarray. Meanwhile, a small, exasperated sigh escapes Davy as he finally grasps the situation. The financial department is indeed involved. The manager, however, remains perplexed by his reaction, wondering if he intends to shift blame or simply ignore the problem. Having heard enough, he rises from the couch, declaring his departure to Amy, who then inquires if he plans to visit the financial department himself. A look of utter disdain crosses his face as he questions, why would he ever go to such a place? As they walk away, Amy remarks that she's certain he won't be going there either, knowing they wouldn't simply grant him free access to the bank. The financial manager, left behind with 2 guards, mutters to herself, suggesting he simply use the money he already has in his pockets. Despite the chaos of his finances, his personal space remains impeccably ordered. He continues to walk away from the financial manager, dismissing the concerns with a wave of his hand, explaining that his servants would naturally flee if nobles behaved in such a manner, yet he always ensured they were paid in full. His maid, Amy, follows closely behind, her voice filled with worry as she reminds him, Sir, all of the burden is carried by Amy alone. She then asks, with a hint of confusion and fear, Sword? Pardon. He reassures her with a casual wave, Don't worry about it. I don't plan on cutting anyone. A wide, Amused grin spreads across his face as he playfully asks, "Huh, did I scare you?" Then, turning away with a newly acquired sword in hand, he adds, "I'll go look for one." As he strides through the opulent hall, his thoughts drift to a past memory, acknowledging, that's right. He recalls a time when he ran to God, telling those three deities he hated humans, yet now, he muses, he has no plans to cut a person. A figure with vibrant pink hair tumbles through a crimson-streaked void, a voice remarking on the perceived ease of their position. Shadowy hands converge on a splattered blue substance, as a declaration rings out. The current situation has become corrupted, and they have undoubtedly fallen into a trap. With defiant red eyes, the pink-haired figure looks up, refusing to tolerate such an outcome. Their gaze now cast downward, they assert their absolute intention to resist. Standing on a small platform amidst swirling purple particles, the figure declares their refusal to become a mere puppet for corrupt nobles. Elsewhere, a massive, amorphous creature lets out a booming, guttural cry. Back in the castle, Amy gasps in surprise, calling out to Davy and questioning when he acquired the sword he now holds. A distant figure stands before what might be a castle, as thoughts drift to the secret hiring of a proofing agent. Davy looks down at the sword in his hand, acknowledging that his earlier statement was a lie, but deciding to maintain the pretense for now. "Sir Davy," Amy cries out, begging him to kill her instead. She looks up at him, her face contorted in distress, unable to comprehend his actions, only managing a choked, I can't let the blood of an animal touch the hands of a prince," she insists, even as the creature's viscous remains are already splattered across her. He sighs, a hint of exasperation in his voice, reminding her that she's the one who teaches etiquette, and she might injure herself again if she's not careful. A reassuring smile spreads across his face, telling her it's all right since no one is looking. With a swift, decisive motion, his blade cuts through the creature, the impact barely registering as a threat, for this level of danger is nothing to him. He calmly wipes the blade clean, reflecting that even if he wanted to see the king, political affairs would prevent it, and as for the other royalty, there's nothing he can do about them. Elsewhere, a figure stands, sword in hand, declaring their role as a student of the Imperial Academy, in charge of the West of Orion, and also the head of a specialist. This, they state, is a blade. From within the Grand Academy, a question lingers in the air. What could possibly be an accident in such a meticulously controlled environment? As a maid helps her dress, Daphne considers her options, musing, "I'll wear this one." The maid, pleased, assures her, "You look good in it, my lady," though Daphne internally admits, "It's not that I don't like it, but..." Meanwhile, a report details the first prince's dire condition, stating he is barely able to move his body and will require at least 3 months to fully recover. Daphne, reviewing the information, questions sharply, "Is there any reason your information could be wrong?" Her expression remains thoughtful, as the maid continues to adjust her attire. The maid, perhaps sensing her mistress's unease, continues to speak. "Even though you might be a class informant for the Dark Moon, you are nothing but a C-class maid in my presence." Daphne's thoughts drift to the Assassin's Guild, known as the Dark Moon, residing in the west of Orion, and she acknowledges the maid's words, though not her sentiment. Despite the maid's bluntness, Daphne admits, "I just can't shake off the feeling she gives me," as she considers the first prince, whom even the king has abandoned. Elsewhere, a maid named Shirley looks out a window, reflecting on the situation, believing that nothing will change, even if the first prince were to wake up after 6 years. A delicate hand reaches out, its owner reflecting that she will still hold the first prince's life within her palms. Meanwhile, a maid stands in the background, her thoughts echoing the sentiment that things are supposed to be a certain way, but the reality often deviates. Turning to her mistress, Shirley insists that her conscience compels her to act regardless of class, warning that if they continue to insult the royal family, there will be consequences. As the image of a distressed first Prince Davy flashes in her mind, Shirley clarifies that she was merely voicing her concerns, nothing more. She muses to herself, her gaze distant, that no matter how she considers it, it's always better to eliminate those who refuse to obey. As she walks away through the opulent hall, a loyal maid bows deeply behind her, offering her unwavering service, ready to act on command. The process is akin to pulling a delicate thread through countless needles, as mana pierces the tunnel, creating a steady stream of energy. A voice urges caution, advising to stay strong and careful. Davy, facing a glowing interface, is asked if he understands the situation, specifically regarding his youngest. He considers the task, stating that if it's not too difficult, he will undertake it, even if it means doing it the prince's way. Later, with Daphne by his side, he observes something off-panel, finding it quite entertaining. Davy questions her amusement, as a narration describes a drunk priestess capable of splitting oceans and a necromancer who acts more like a butler. He then turns his attention to a glowing red orb, wondering about its purpose. Meanwhile, a thoughtful empress, Sister Hypaxia, considers the situation. She offers her assistance with mana, acknowledging that not everyone is blessed with such talent, to which Davy concedes the truth of her statement. Sister Hypaxia's voice echoes, urging trust, as the memory of her offer to help with mana lingers in Davy's mind. He stands, back turned, contemplating the weight of her words, a flashback from the temple playing out in his thoughts. The memory fades, leaving him with a resolute thought. He never wants to go through that again. Time passes, and the scene shifts to a serene garden, where Amy can be seen amidst the lush greenery. Her voice, a soft inquiry, drifts through the dense foliage, calling out to someone. A small creature greets her return, as a voice welcomes her back, asking if she's exploring the gardens today. Amy observes the beautiful surroundings, remarking on the pleasant weather and the elegant appearance of the forest, now like a garden. She reassures someone that she is fine and can leave, but asks to be informed if anyone is looking for her. Davy reflects on Amy's progress, noting that while she would normally flip out, she's starting to adapt to her new circumstances, even if it's hard. Davy wonders if his efforts to connect with Amy are finally yielding results. Noting that while she still refuses to eat with him, her demeanor is noticeably brighter than before. He decides to spend his day focusing on himself. Meanwhile, Amy sits beneath a tree, contemplating her next steps. As a shimmering hexagonal pattern, an operation field, materializes around her. She begins her practice. Golden, ethereal lines of mana swirling around her as she focuses intently. From a distance, Davy watches, observing the intricate process of drawing mana from nature and exhaling stale air. This, he realizes, is the technique of mana breathing. He considers the breathing technique a divine art for magicians, a small, dark orb of power, understanding that without a way to draw mana, the body cannot store it. Generally, through this method, the body would normally be invited into the world of magic, but it's a merciless process, a truly unforgiving path. If the country were to learn of this, it would spark a massive revolution, yet he has no intention of revealing such a secret to the world. After all, it's not as if it's something that can be achieved easily anyway. He ponders the difficulty of the technique, a silent question hanging in the air. His eyes open, a flicker of awareness in their depths, as he senses an unexpected presence. A thought forms in his mind, directed at the unseen entity. He decides to observe his surroundings, concluding that if looking into the details causes trouble, he'll simply leave it be, for he would be in even greater trouble if they perceived him as a weak and foolish prince. He sits in a quiet forest, eyes closed in meditation, knowing that his mana distortion technique demands a peaceful environment for training. The sheer amount of mana he requires is simply too great. However, a smirk plays on his lips as he realizes it's about time he made his move. His thoughts drift to the intricate, glowing design of his mana circle, a powerful construct he refers to with a hint of exasperation. Standing in a quiet gazebo, he reflects on the fundamental laws of magic. Priests cannot use magic, and mages cannot use holy powers. His hand brushes against a vine-covered wall as he considers another forbidden art, necromancy, a power that remains inaccessible to both priests and mages. With his eyes glowing crimson, he asserts his unique ability. He can wield all three of these distinct powers, a thought that leads him to consider the temple's no crazy girls policy. A fleeting memory of Daphne and another dark-haired woman, the two Old Bail researchers, crosses his mind. And the mere thought of it all makes him feel physically ill. Davy practices his unique mana manipulation, his form blurring as he moves, a testament to his focused training. He sighs, knowing that normal mages simply draw a circle on their heart to use mana. But for him, the process is far more complex, his feet lifting slightly as a faint orange glow begins to flicker around them. For even he cannot draw a circle on his heart and combine it with holy power, instead needing to create a unique circle made just for him, glowing around his entire form. This intricate design involves matching the arteries all around his body, allowing him to create an intricate circle and pour his mana into it, using his entire body as the circle and his heart as the core. Green glowing lines spread from his bare feet into the earth, a visual representation of the deep connection. But he knows that since this is as close to body modification as one can get, the danger is immense. He reminds himself that even a single mistake will be the death of him. Closing his eyes, a faint purple glow around his head, he recalls the last time he did this. He almost died because of the mana reversal, cursing the difficulty of his unique power. He wonders if he will succeed this time, attempting to grow a flower on his palm using his unique mana manipulation. His eyes glow crimson as the mana surges, a visible exclamation of power erupting from his hands. Meanwhile, Daphne, Sister Hypoxia, and Amy observe, with one of them thinking that this isn't like her usual self. Davy's resolve hardens, knowing he must put his life on the line for this endeavor. As he pushes the limits of his dangerous technique, a delicate, glowing flower beginning to bloom from his outstretched hand. Later, as night falls over the grand castle, Amy stands looking out, noting that it's already past dinner time and the young master is late. He is usually late, she muses, but he has never skipped a meal before, leaving the covered dishes untouched on the table. Still consumed by worry, she recounts the prince's strict instructions. He told me not to bother him unless something big happened, but if something happened to him, he would have called for help. Her brow furrowed with growing unease, she can't shake the terrifying thought. If something were to happen to the prince, Suddenly, a voice cuts through her thoughts, snapping her attention to the unexpected arrival. Standing before her, a familiar figure calls out, "Sir Davy, I'm back." He approaches, a slight smile playing on his lips, asking, "Did you perhaps wait for me? I told you not to wait for me." Observing her stunned silence, he sighs softly. "Sigh, you and your resilience." Her cheeks flush crimson as a realization dawns on her. "It seems like I have grown harder," she thinks. Without another word, he pulls her into a warm embrace, holding her close. Her heart pounds in her chest, and her eyes glow with a soft, emerald light, betraying the depth of her emotion. Her emerald glow fading, he pulls back slightly, a soft apology escaping his lips as he looks down at Amy. But the tender moment is shattered as Shirley cries out, struggling against an unseen force, her strength reaching its absolute limit, just as Davy is violently pulled downwards, disappearing into a cloud of dust. A soft light filters into the room, illuminating the ornate chandelier above, as Davy slowly regains consciousness. He blinks, his mind clearing, and a wave of relief washes over him, realizing there was no reason to have worried. But then, a sudden jolt of memory. He recalls passing out unexpectedly yesterday. Beside him, a gentle hand adjusts the bedsheets, and he sees Amy sleeping peacefully next to him, confirming his memory. He thinks, "Oh no, that's right, I passed out suddenly yesterday." Raising his hand, he observes the intricate network of veins, now glowing with a subtle energy, confirming that the artery circle he had been hesitant to complete is now perfectly formed, and the three distinct powers flowing within his veins have merged with a strange, special effect on top of this new circle. As the morning light streams through the window, Amy continues to sleep soundly beside him. Amy watches him with wide eyes, a sense of awe washing over her as she observes the subtle changes in his presence. The power emanating from him feels truly limitless, she thinks, barely able to form the words as she addresses him. Even now, she realizes he can use any spell, including the most complex restoration magic, a feat that would normally require immense training and focus. Davy, now fully awake, offers her a simple greeting, his voice calm and composed. 5 months later, the world around them had changed, and so had their daily lives. Now in a lush forest, Amy excitedly calls out to him, showing off a basket filled with freshly gathered herbs. Davy reminds her playfully about their dinner plans, while she responds with a grateful chuckle, clearly enjoying their new routine. Exactly 5 months ago, since the artery circle was completed, their lives had indeed become much more cheerful. He had initially believed the Queen's actions were part of a calculated scheme, but now, he wasn't so sure. She would fall perfectly into his hands for a reason, he muses, feeling that Amy is helping him intently, yet her true intentions remain a mystery, making him question if she was merely a mission. Within the castle walls, he senses a distinct presence, and with his enhanced mana, identifying its source is a simple task. Though they had maintained their distance to avoid disrupting her daily life, his crimson eye glows with the certainty of his detection. The presence belongs to the Queen's informant, her gloved hand gripping a staff. Meanwhile, Amy, now free from worries about food, gently instructs a cat to clean itself up. As they stand together in an open field, he questions the informant's identity, learning she is merely a castle maid. With this new information, they approach the imposing castle gates. Unseen by them, the Queen's informant stands, her dark robe a silent sentinel. Davy stands in a grand room, his gaze fixed on something unseen, a thoughtful hum escaping his lips. His expression remains unchanged, as the quiet hum continues. A moment of silence passes, his thoughts unreadable. Later, an older man stands by Davy's bedside, his voice laced with concern as he asks, "How is it?" He explains that since the prince's body has been sick for so long, they should stop the treatment for now, as it's too much of a burden, but Davy, surprised, quickly interjects, "No, you have to. I can't be treated by others. Only you can." The old man scoffs, thinking to himself, "Bullshit. You think I don't know you're just trying to replace a young healing mage with an old one? As the head of Davy's household, I am the prime priest of the nation. To think why he's so sick, you're the one who's been giving him what? A disappointment." Davy, however, remains unyielding, telling him, "You should stop sugarcoating your words. It's not that you can't heal me, but that you won't." The old man clenches his fist, reflecting on the situation. "I thought with the silver gun that was given to you by Princess Daphne, you'd at least show me some decent abilities right now. Contrary to my expectations, he is near the end of his recovery." He warns Davy, "Prince, if you keep talking like that, because you don't understand," but Davy retorts, "I don't understand." The old man simply huffs in frustration. The priest, his hand glowing with holy power, asserts his authority, declaring that the knowledge and usage of such power belong only to priests, adding that even a princess should not be so selfish. Amy, on the floor, looks up in distress, realizing the truth of his words, and accuses him of cruelty towards the princess, calling him a fool. His face contorts in anger, warning her to tread carefully with her words. From behind, he looms over Amy, demanding to know if she is trying to teach him a lesson. A clock on a nearby table ticks, marking the tense moment. Amy remains on the ground, covering her face, as a hand reaches out to her, a voice quietly calling out, "Hey you." The priest turns, startled, as Davy enters the room, muttering about the prince, considering reporting the incident to the Queen, and acknowledging that even a maid is a human being. Amy looks up from the floor, her thoughts betraying a sense of self-deprecation, believing she doesn't look like much. A hand gently covers her mouth, silencing her. A smug smirk plays across the unnamed priest's lips. A clear sign of his regained composure as he rests a hand casually on the table, thinking to himself, this guy has quite the smile. He then addresses Davy directly, his voice dripping with feigned relaxation. Don't I look relaxed? I'm sure you'll be able to tell the queen about this. The queen's informant is here to check. The priest continues his taunt, inviting Davy to report his actions, who simply responds with a quiet, yes. Nearby, the queen's informants observe the exchange, a woman with bright orange hair and a man with a distinct red cap, both watching intently. Davy remains silent, his back to the viewer, his thoughts unreadable. The ornate shield emblem on the wall stands as a silent witness to the unfolding drama, while a grand clock ticks away the moments, its hands nearing the top. The heavy, closed doors of the chamber hold the secrets within. High above, an ornate chandelier hangs silently, casting its light over a tense encounter. A hand reaches out, its touch firm, as a voice warns, remember this. Daphne's grip tightens on Amy's shoulder, her words a cold command. You have to come by yourself at night. Amy's eyes widen slightly, her gaze fixed downwards as Daphne continues. Remember that the fate of the prince is in the palm of my hands. Daphne's expression hardens, her voice laced with disdain as she questions, this is a royal maid? She dismisses the situation with a cold shrug. Why would I care? He's just a sick prince. Left alone, Amy stands, her small frame trembling with fear and uncertainty. An ornate sword hilt, adorned with a green gem, rests in a lavish setting, while nearby, a grand, empty chamber stands silent, awaiting its occupant. Within the echoing silence of a vast hall, a chilling sensation creeps over him, a strange coldness seeping into his very being. He struggles to articulate the turmoil within, questioning if this intense emotion could truly be pure rage, as the very ground beneath him begins to fracture. With each deliberate step, the sound of his footsteps echoes through the chamber, a rhythmic beat accompanying his deep contemplation. He reminds himself that he had not cultivated such dignity at the temple merely to discard it so easily, and Lady Daphne's words about being less than an animal if he couldn't control his anger resonate within him. Yet, despite these efforts to rein himself in, his true thoughts diverge from such noble ideals. As he continues his solitary walk, the path his mind takes is distinctly different. A sudden exclamation of shock echoes through the grand hall. As the prince continues his stride, a faint blue aura emanating from him, while an unseen voice questions his presence. Adequate rage, it is said, is the spring of life, and can also be the strongest of one's goals. His barely contained fury manifests, leaving a trail of fractured stone in his wake, a testament to the raw power simmering beneath his calm exterior. If laziness is the spring of life, then rage would be its driving force. The opulent chandelier above hangs silently, but one must always keep in mind the consequences. While a bald official, his face etched with concern, discusses the grave implications of such an act, questioning if it amounts to an assassination of royalty. The bearded informant, standing firm, confirms his earlier statements to the messenger and the guard captain. Meanwhile, a young woman, her expression worried, ponders aloud who truly stands on Prince Davy's side. The bald official, now addressing a larger assembly, declares that no one would dare oppose the queen, asserting that the kingdom's swords and shields are hers alone. Unaware or unconcerned by the political machinations, the prince continues his solitary walk, a quiet affirmation escaping his lips. He plummets through the air, a sword clutched in his hand, a wry thought crossing his mind about needing an excuse for this dramatic entrance. His descent continues, crashing onto a balcony with a jarring impact, the very idea of royalty for the queen seeming to mock his uncontrolled fall. Finally hitting the ground face first, he still manages to declare his allegiance, albeit muffled, to Her Majesty. Later, standing before a young maid, Davy Orwain simply utters her name, Amy, his gaze intense. Nearby, a bearded courtier reacts with utter shock, his mind reeling in disbelief at the unfolding scene. The young man then turns his attention to the stunned official, casually asking if he is now permitted to move. The courtier, regaining his composure, unleashes a torrent of anger, denouncing the idea of promotion for someone of a lower class and dismissing any need for dirty magic. Amy, witnessing the harsh words, can only stare in wide-eyed shock. Davy Orwain, his expression stern, turns back to the maid, reminding her sharply that he had explicitly told her not to speak twice. Amy's eyes widen in terror, her hands rising to her face as the words echo in her mind. The penalty for blasphemy against royalty. But before the informant can continue his tirade, Davy Orwain's finger shoots out, a faint glow emanating from his hand as he cuts the man off, declaring, "That's." A declaration that quickly turns into a forceful strike, sending the bearded informant crashing to his knees with a heavy thud. As the man reels, Davy's hand glows brighter, an ethereal, razor-sharp blade of pure energy materializing in his grasp. The blade finds its mark, and a dark, glowing pool of blood splatters across the pristine floor, a jagged shard of corrupted magic left behind. Clutching his chest in agony, the informant gasps for air, his pained cries barely forming the words, "Kyuk." Hyuk, the Queen. Standing beside a still worried Amy in the Grand Hall, he considers the implications of the Holy Land, a place of immense power and influence. A subtle smirk plays on his lips, his gaze dropping slightly as he processes the situation. Looking towards the light streaming through a grand window, he acknowledges the informant's warning, but adds a confident guarantee of his own. In a world where those who dared to be different were destined to vanish. A new segment of the story begins. Amidst the opulent halls of the palace, a voice rings out with disbelief, accusing, "You must be crazy." Davy Orawane, looking down with a slight flush, considers the accusation to kill none other. The Queen, clutching her chest in distress, finishes his thought with a horrified question, "Then the disgrace from the Holy Land?" She continues, demanding to know how he could inflict such harm, while he calmly asserts that he merely punished the man according to the law, questioning if there was anything wrong with that. Her face contorted in fury, the Queen curses him as a bastard. She then reveals the man fell into a coma, but he dismisses her concern, stating the injury wasn't critical. Despite all that transpired and the royal silence, Davy reflects on the irony of being reprimanded himself, the one who merely enforced the law. Davy Orawane stands before the Queen, a thoughtful expression on his face as he considers the absurdity of the situation. The Queen, however, is far from amused, her voice sharp as she accuses him of overstepping his bounds, of defying her authority. Her anger mounts, dismissing any justification for his actions, especially when it came to the informant's fate. Unfazed, Davy retorts with a scathing insult, reminding her that her judgment is flawed and warning of immediate repercussions from the Holy Land. He continues to provoke her, suggesting her stupidity was inherited, before correcting himself with a sardonic twist. The Queen lets out a frustrated sound, her hand clenching as she labels him a shallow being. Her insults continue, now extending to his mother, a blue magical aura beginning to shimmer around Davy as he listens. His eyes glow crimson, a dangerous glint appearing as he reminds her of the impropriety of cursing someone's parents directly in front of them. A sudden burst of energy erupts from him, forcing the Queen to recoil, her hand instinctively rising to shield herself from the unexpected display of power. As his power surged, he effortlessly shattered the magical chains that bound him, the remnants of the spell dissolving into nothingness. A lone carrot, impaled by a spoon, seemed to float in the void. Back in the royal chamber, the Queen and her attendants recoiled from the lingering shockwave of his magic, a purple aura still shimmering around them. With eyes glowing crimson, he offered a defiant smirk, a soft, mocking ha, escaping his lips. Elsewhere, a blindfolded figure, their face obscured, extended a hand as they mused, "It's good to test your loyalty." Suddenly, a sharp blade pressed against the Queen's throat, an unseen assailant speaking with a disappointed tone, "Though it would have become more interesting if you'd done a little more." Unaware or unconcerned with the Queen's immediate peril, Davy looked down, then settled into a chair, casually stating, "Oh well, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it, whether you're alive or anyone else." He leaned back, completely at ease, his posture reflecting his utter indifference. The Queen, her face contorted in a mix of fury and disbelief, could only stare in stunned anger. Her eyes wide with dawning horror, the Queen could barely utter a sound, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. He knew, she thought, he knew that Carlos was the true culprit all along. From above, Davy Orawane looked down upon the scene, his thoughts a stark contrast to the Queen's panic. "That's right," he mused, "of course I did. I'm not stupid enough to keep a useless person for long." Such trivial matters simply didn't suit his tastes. Turning to Daphne, he spoke with a casual air, "I'm tired, so will you please go back?" He then added, "I knew as soon as I saw the prince's cheek that you were the culprit." Daphne, startled, could only manage a choked, "You mustn't." Meanwhile, the Queen, surrounded by her attendants, regained her composure, her voice firm as she declared, "And please, be more ladylike in my palace. As you can see, the stones of this building." Unaware of her renewed defiance, Davy continued to address Daphne, "I'm a very good judge of character. You saw through all the tricks I used to fool you. I'll let you act as my maid. I want you as my maid. In case of emergency, you'll be the only one I can possibly trust." Daphne reacted with a blush, finding his words a bit overwhelming, but he simply pressed on, "You'll be able to do so, right, Daphne?" The Queen, however, was far from finished, her resolve hardening as she vowed, "I won't stay put while you act out as I did before." A distant figure lets out a frustrated cry, followed by a dismissive humph. A group of maids gasp in unison, their shock palpable. The blonde woman collapses to the floor, her face obscured by her hair, a cry of anguish escaping her lips. The opulent room falls silent save for the thud of her fall and the collective gasp of the onlookers, as Daphne stands over her, while Davy observes from a distance. Still on the floor, the blonde woman defiantly warns her unseen tormentor, "Keep acting out like that." She challenges her oppressor, her voice laced with disbelief. You think you can do this to me?" The only way one can act without being able to see the truth, it seems, is through their own arrogance and pride. A grand castle stands under a clear sky, its presence a silent declaration that the time for decisive action has arrived. The situation within the inner palace was exactly as expected, with whispers spreading through the gathered crowd about the first prince, dismissing him as a useless piece of trash incapable of such actions. A maid, overhearing the hushed tones, urgently shushed her companions, demanding silence. Meanwhile, after the priest had been dealt with and the queen received her warning, a maid rushed through the palace halls. A letter, bearing news of the first prince, Davy, was delivered. He sat calmly, engrossed in a book, as the political currents shifted around him. The letter stated that as half the capital's population was aligned with the queen, his reputation had taken a nosedive. With eyes glowing faintly green from distress, a maid cried out to the queen, her voice filled with urgency. Amy, holding another stack of correspondence, announced that even more letters had arrived today. Davy, looking up from his book, simply asked if it was happening again, before acknowledging her efforts with a quiet thanks. A man with spectacles, holding a book, muses aloud about his reputation, wondering if anyone truly recognizes his good nature. He then turns his attention to a small device, a faint smile playing on his lips as he asks, "Does my personality seem that good to you?" An orange-haired maid, her eyes closed in earnestness, immediately responds with unwavering conviction, "Of course." Her swift, heartfelt reply makes the man with glasses pause, reflecting on how she can be so genuinely kind, even after he had killed someone right before her eyes. He sometimes wonders about it himself. The maid, lost in thought, appears to be contemplating the man's character, concluding that she truly is an amazing person. Meanwhile, Prince Davy Orwain stands on a grand balcony, observing a group of people below who bow deeply, one of them proclaiming, "I greet the small son of the kingdom." Davy, recognizing some familiar faces among the bowing figures, realizes these are the very informants who had been spreading rumors about him. They have been brought here to meet the crown prince. He notes that all the individuals who had exchanged information from his palace's sleeping quarters have since fled, and he can even recognize some of their faces among the current group. Later, back inside, Davy discusses the nature of embellishment and fleecing with the man with glasses, who asks if this is a normal occurrence. Davy replies that it depends on the situation, but it is not uncommon. Before him, the very informants who had spread malicious rumors now prostrated themselves, begging for their lives. A faint light emanated from his eyes, as he considered their desperate pleas. He then turned to the orange-haired maid, inquiring, "There's been an interesting rumor circulating recently." The rumor, they knew, painted him as a prince who was crazy for blood. He mused, wondering if he should simply act in accordance with that terrifying reputation. The orange-haired maid, however, insisted she was happy to serve a good person, prompting him to question her certainty. Later, he met with Besphus, who simply uttered his name. Looking out a window with the maid, he confessed that he was not a good person, merely a prince skilled at acting. The knowledge that the queen herself had orchestrated these events made the situation all the more intriguing, and he decided to play along. His gaze sharp, Davy's thoughts linger on the informants who will face execution in 9 days. Approaching him with a formal bow, Besphus, the chamberlain, delivers a message from the queen. He explains that the vacant positions for the prince's personal staff will be filled, implying the queen's hand in the appointments. Davy, however, has a specific request, deciding to appoint the green-eyed maid as his personal attendant, demanding a raise and a bonus for her. With a calm demeanor, he agrees to the queen's terms. Then, he adds another condition, inquiring if an audience with his father, the king, is permitted. Besphus confirms it is not, prompting Davy to question whether this restriction comes from his father or the queen. The chamberlain clarifies he is merely the messenger, a fact Davy already knows. Understanding the implications, Davy acknowledges the situation, while Besphus advises him to be extremely careful. As he processed the recent exchange, Besphus let out a soft, contemplative sound. Meanwhile, Davy, having concluded his business, announced his departure, adding a casual, "Oh, right," as he turned to leave. Back in his chambers, Besphus mused on the food he had left behind, and the clothes and gold intended for medicinal use. He wondered if, with the recent shifts in power, other aspects of their situation might also change. A knowing chuckle escaped him, though he feigned ignorance when questioned about his thoughts. He then remarked on the apparent blessing of someone's kindness, prompting a surprised inquiry. Elsewhere, Amy delivered a message, informing her listener that a special guest would arrive tomorrow, and she would be off duty, internally wondering how the information was known. With a final instruction to take some rest, she concluded her duties. As the words settled, a faint, ethereal glow began to emanate from the palm of a hand. He holds a glowing ring, his gaze fixed on it, as a voice from an unseen observer remarks on his search for evidence, claiming the truth is already within reach. As he walks through the palace halls, the voice continues, identifying itself as Besphus, the Grand Chamberlain, the one who oversees all who serve the king. The unseen speaker then adds that, apart from Amy, no one else in the palace was truly on their side, a small, glowing object held in their hand. Later, looking at a book, he recalls Besphus's words, a thought crossing his mind. Suddenly, a tiny, green-haired figure peeks from behind a door, hesitantly addressing him as Your Majesty, its small voice barely a whisper. The small, winged being, identified as the fourth princess's handmaid, is then mistakenly called Amy by an unseen speaker. The little figure, with wide, excited eyes, flies directly towards him, exclaiming with joy, "A heartfelt brother!" echoing through the room as he sits stunned in his chair. She embraces his head tightly, her voice filled with affection as she clarifies, "Brother, it's Winky." Winky Al Roan, a member of the Roan Kingdom's ancient fairies, announces her arrival, her presence a vibrant burst of energy. Winky's eyes widen in surprise, a soft, "oh," escaping her lips. She floats down to him, her voice filled with concern, asking if he is all right, while he can only manage a bewildered, "I see." Daphne, standing nearby, lets out a small, shocked gasp. Winky then explains how difficult it was to follow him, expressing a desire to replace Amy and be with him, her voice rising with affection as she calls out "brother" and chides him for being careless. She joyfully repeats his title, "brother," wanting to see him, while Davy internally questions why she keeps calling him that. Barisi Al Roan, the current king of the Dawn Kingdom, stands with his back to the viewer, his ornate crown gleaming. He has 3 wives, including the current queen, Lady Rabbit, along with 2 other concubines, Alice and Anisha, who stand elegantly beside a third, unnamed woman. The complex dynamics of the royal court often lead to one becoming an outsider among the wives, as Anisha and the unnamed woman appear to be discussing. Barisi is also father to Winley Al Roan, who, along with her siblings, shares a father but has different mothers. Winley, looking distressed, apologizes for causing a ridiculous scene. Meanwhile, a young man with green hair calls out to his brother, his expression one of surprise. Suddenly, he is struck by a swift, unseen force, sending him reeling backward with a cry of alarm. Stunned and disoriented, the young man demands to know what Winley is doing. Winley's foot presses against her brother, who recoils, demanding to know why she is acting so strangely and improperly. She glares at him, reminding him, "Did you forget that you were the one who insisted on wanting to see our brother first?" As an orange aura flares around her, she challenges him. "How can you talk to your older brother like that?" He dismisses her, muttering, "Older brother my ass," before a smaller voice in his head questions if he's even allowed to address royalty so casually. Despite their bickering, an unseen observer notes that they are remarkably similar, and the rumors of them being raised among orphans must be true. She continues her tirade. "You're the one who caused that ridiculous scene earlier. You're the one who said you'd become the king." He protests, "What did I do?" However, he believes his brother would agree with him, but Winley simply tells him to stop joking around. Despite the argument, Winley laughs, calling out to her brother, who responds with an exasperated cry of his own. An unseen observer reflects that they are still the siblings who are close and listen to everything they have to say, even as Winley tells him to stop laughing, and he calls out to her again. His thoughts race, telling himself, "Don't talk nonsense," as he is sent hurtling through the air. 6 years have passed since the events unfolded. A brief mention of the situation was all that reached him, detailing how one couldn't escape, having fallen into the concubine's trap. Then, the story continued. Reflecting on those times, the green-haired brother wonders aloud, what could these powerless children do at the time? Adding to the complex web of royal intrigue, the concubine Anisha, with her flowing blue hair, faced her own struggles. She had sent her first daughter, Tana, to a foreign kingdom due to Queen Lena's scheming, and was left with the burden of protecting her 2 remaining children. Winky Al Roan, listening intently, offers a quiet understanding. "It's okay, I understand." Yet, despite the circumstances, the people themselves don't seem to be able to accept it. Davy Orwain, deep in thought, questions, "Although you did not father?" He then clarifies, "Yes, we met him before he was meant to be born." His concern then turns to, "How is he?" Winky, surprised by a sudden realization, calls out, "Wait, brother?" She then adds, "He seems so distant." And her voice trails off as she asks, "Have you met father?" Winky Al Roan, nestled in her bed, quietly muses on her desire to one day meet their father. Later, standing beside her brother, she reminds him of a past event, saying, "Brother, we saw this on the way here." The opulent halls of the royal residence stand silent, adorned with intricate gold and marble. His thoughts drift to the past, to a time when he was obsessed with money, believing it would bring him closer to his father, but realizing now that it was a foolish endeavor. Even so, the weight of those memories presses down on him. As he recalls the others who were involved, acknowledging, they did all that. Winky, however, remains resolute, telling him, "While knowing you're going to retire in your room, I'm going to go find my father. Don't waste your effort on me." Her brother reacts with a frustrated sigh, but he sits alone, contemplating her words and the lingering question of his father's true nature, wondering, why did he leave me alone? A faint tingling sensation, like a distant memory, washes over him, but he dismisses it as merely his imagination. Meanwhile, Daphne, observing his reaction, remarks that he didn't truly possess such a talent to begin with, adding that she heard he was more than surprised by recent events, and that the current situation wouldn't be fun without his involvement. Davy, lost in thought, finds himself unsure whether to feel happy or sad about the unfolding circumstances. As Daphne reveals the nature of the event, he exclaims in surprise, realizing it's a swordsmanship competition, before letting out a frustrated sigh. Daphne, however, is resolute, insisting that he cannot back out now, as his plan is perfect and he must participate in this competition, for they intend to make him the next emperor. The weight of her words causes him to clear his throat, a clear sign of his shock and discomfort. With a decisive motion, he seals a letter with wax, confirming his participation. Holding the now sealed document, he muses that it's a swordsmanship competition held only every 5 years, letting out a thoughtful ho. The letter itself details a grand competition encompassing the entirety of the continents. He asks if the upcoming competition is similar to the Olympics, as Winky explains it involves mercenaries and knights from various classes. Considering the opportunity to explore beyond the palace walls, he decides to make a request to the queen. However, his plans are quickly interrupted as Winky and her brother, their faces alight with excitement, insist on joining him. He quickly rebuffs them, stating that his part of the plan doesn't include them, and that they are still too young to be proper hunters. Despite his protests, the twins grab him by the arms, physically attempting to pull him along. His brother, with a determined look, declares that there's nothing he can do about it. Back at the table, the twins present him with an offer, their faces beaming. With a swift motion, they toss something into the air. Walking away in exasperation, he tells them to stop decorating his palace, while Winky quietly wonders if he's truly happy. He muses on his past, realizing he has hardly ever ventured beyond the palace walls. Now, he feels it's time to experience the world, at least once. With a quill in hand, he confirms his resolve, knowing he can also make his mark. A thoughtful expression crosses his face as he sips from his cup. Looking up with a slight smile, he declares his anticipation and mentions Winley's involvement too. Such a complex, almost double personality he possesses. Meanwhile, a goblet is filled with a rich, red liquid, as thoughts turn to the upcoming swordsmanship competition. Barisi, too, is growing up, turning 14 this year, and almost an adult. It's expected that he and Winley should be engaging in conversation around now. A metallic chain, intricately designed, hangs suspended, its weight seemingly significant. Meanwhile, Besvis offers a reassuring smile, remarking on the young master's newfound uprightness. Indeed, his calmness and keen perception have grown immensely, surprising even those who have watched him closely. Besvis takes a thoughtful sip from his teacup, his expression reflecting deep contemplation. Daphne and Amy exchange a look of concern, noting that barely a year has passed, while the young master himself appears lost in a quiet sadness. Besvis continues to ponder the rapid changes. A quiet room holds a framed portrait, its presence a subtle reminder of someone important. The woman in the painting, Daphne, seems to approve, her expression radiating satisfaction. Meanwhile, Davy stands with a thoughtful smile, perhaps contemplating the day's events. He had spent more than 8 hours avoiding the watchful eyes of the palace staff, a task made easier by the Grand Chamberlain's discreet reduction in the number of maids and servants. Amy, one of the maids, gazes in awe at the grand, palace-like structure, uttering soft exclamations of wonder. She turns to Davy, her voice filled with disbelief, exclaiming that she can't believe it's actually gone. Davy considers the orange-haired informant, finding her intriguing in her own way, but wonders if he might have pushed her too much. As the orange-haired informant approaches, she addresses him, her words hinting at a question about his presence. The hour has arrived, and a voice asks if everything is ready, confirming that Amy has packed all necessities. With a slight look of confusion, Amy is entrusted with a bundle, told to take care of it. As the doors clink open, Davy and Amy begin their journey, setting off for the distant Polisti kingdom. A grand flag flutters in the wind, heralding the start of a momentous occasion. It is the Continental Swordsmanship Competition, an event that not only captures the world's attention, but also wields immense influence. Even if one cannot personally participate, the victory of someone like Barisi could elevate the entire empire beyond imagination. Davy stands before the king, a silent observer to the political machinations, as the queen's easy agreement to his participation in the competition, despite the potential blow to Prince Carlo's standing, raises questions. He wonders if her confidence stems from a belief in his failure, or if she harbors some deeper, more sinister plan, a heavy step echoing in the silence. As Daphne departs, Davy watches her go. While Crown Prince Barisi al-Roan, the current king of Roan Kingdom, sits regally on his throne, Davy reflects on Daphne, his supposed fiancée, whom he hasn't seen in a year since leaving home. The king's voice cuts through his thoughts, commanding them to raise their heads. Barisi then challenges him, asking if he is truly confident, to which Davy firmly replies, yes. His green-haired brother offers a final word, urging him to return safely after representing their kingdom in the swordsmanship competition. He walks away from the royal court, Daphne by his side, their steps echoing through the grand halls. Soon, she departs, leaving him to his own thoughts. A faint blue aura shimmers around him as he muses, it's good to be alive. He resolves not to waste his emotions on the king, even as his green-haired brother looks on with a questioning gaze. Davy acknowledges him, simply asking, brother? Yet, the weight of his current situation presses down, reminding him, but this is the current king. He urges himself to listen. The fourth prince, Davy Orwain, participating in the Continental Swordsmanship Competition, is an impossible situation, and for that reason, they will get rid of him during the day of the competition festival, leaving no trace of his heroic and confident old self. From his seat on the throne, a silent observer notes how much Davy has changed, as the empty throne seems to echo with a faint, lingering sound, like an old lion, utterly weary of everything. Meanwhile, a soft rustling from behind a curtain reveals Winky, peeking out with a mischievous grin. Before joining Davy at a table, asking if he finds their current situation boring. He agrees, but she insists that despite appearances, they've waited too long for this, and it's no fun when animals are killed before them. Davy dismisses her concern, while Winky reiterates that no one would be happy to be killed in front of others. She then declares, with a playful glint in her eye, that it's not boring at all, because he has prepared something special, offering him a bottle of wine and assuring him there's no need to worry. Davy, however, finds it not worthwhile to drink, even as Winky praises it as her favorite, a fragrant wine. He questions the origin of such a rare grape wine, and Winky reveals it's something his mother left him, though she doesn't know much more. Winky exclaims, and Davy questions if he can truly drink something so precious, to which she playfully retorts, asking if he would rather leave something too good for a mere consumer. Instead, she suggests they should drink it together, just like this. Davy expresses surprise, to which Winky confirms with a smile, adding that he used to love being nagged by his mother, Miss Amy. He remarks that even these small glasses feel too good for a mere consumer, as Winky expertly pours the rich liquid, praising her own effort. Their glasses clink together, and Davy acknowledges her way of thinking, before they both utter a shared cheers. Later, under the vast expanse of the night sky, the full moon casts its gentle glow upon them. By a crackling campfire, Davy declares their departure for the following morning. Winky observes that he has a long journey ahead to reach the Polisti Kingdom, but Davy assures her that despite the distance, he is fine. She then questions, isn't Winky, as Davy reflects on how he somehow managed to get her to go elsewhere. Winky, overwhelmed, finds herself held by Davy, lamenting that it's all too much, offering a tearful apology as he gently comforts her. Later, by a crackling campfire, she reminds him of his old desire to try camping out like this, adding that soon her hands would be too busy to embarrass him. He simply acknowledges her words, a quiet understanding passing between them. Under the soft glow of the moon, Winky continues, reflecting on the day that couldn't easily be erased from her memory, and how the journey ahead would slowly test her patience. She then muses on the nature of change, asking if, even as some things transform, there are also things that remain constant. Davy looks down, a small smile playing on his lips as he expresses his contentment with the moment, offering his thanks. Their quiet conversation is interrupted by Amy, who approaches them, respectfully urging Her Majesty to take some rest. Looking up at the night sky, Davy observes that the moon appears more radiant than usual tonight, his thoughts lingering on its luminous presence. A gentle rustling sound echoes through the branches of the trees as the night continues around them. He stands, sword in hand, amidst a swirl of verdant energy, contemplating the path ahead. It would be perfect to make a comeback, he muses, as a bright streak cuts across the night sky, leading his gaze to two radiant moons. Don't you think? The orange-haired informant explains that the red one is Cyrus, and the blue one, Arius. Davy, however, finds the conversation tedious, remarking that it's common sense, and even a snotty kid would understand it better. He knows quite well. He sighs internally, wishing he could have conversations like this with a woman instead. Suddenly, the green-haired prince approaches, asking why he's muttering all alone. Davy turns, surprised, as the prince questions his concern with the small, shadowy figures on the ground. With a confident smirk, Davy reveals that it was his own phantom magic at work. He explains that there were 5 of them initially, but now only 2 remain, and 4 of them are experts in dark arts and shadow magic. A dark projectile streaks across the moonlit sky, a silent omen of impending danger. Holding a small, glowing blue crystal, he muses, that is, as long as nothing big happens. That's right, things like being targeted by assassins. His thoughts drift to a woman named Alice, who struggles with her own bloodlust, and his green-haired brother, who reluctantly exposes himself to suspicion, as he considers the possibility that his own brother might be involved. With a determined expression, he concludes, it's obviously that woman's deed. A chance for her to get rid of me, including Barisi and Winley too. He remains certain, there is no way she would let such a chance go. Surrounded by shadowy phantom entities, he acknowledges, I'm not exactly happy with having to expose myself to the risk of receiving suspicions. Yet, a calm resolve settles over his face, but when I think about it, it doesn't really matter. A shimmering blue energy barrier materializes around him, as he considers the implications for those who witness his true power. Looking upward, a powerful, white, wing-like aura manifests behind him, his phantom entities swirling protectively as his full might begins to emerge. A sharp, swift swing cuts through the air, leaving a trail of impact and a faint mark on an unseen opponent. As the moment passes, a flock of birds takes flight, their distant calls echoing through the quiet. Davy stands amidst the trees, reflecting on the words of his old master, Pesig Du Go Jun, who taught him that knowing which weapons to use is not enough. One must truly understand how to wield them. He grips his sword, remembering the core lesson. Anything held in one's hands can become a weapon, and there is no need to forget that fundamental truth. With a powerful, blurring motion, he executes a swing, embodying the principle that weapons are merely an extension of the body itself. His blade ignites with a brilliant blue glow, transforming as he prepares to unleash the ninth form of the blade god swordsmanship. The glowing sword strikes with immense force, sending shockwaves rippling through the air. He looks on, his eyes gleaming with a subtle light, a confident thought forming in his mind. Was that all they were capable of? He muses that his current adversaries are nowhere near the caliber of Hermesa, the one who taught him the hand of death. Looking down at the pathetic display, he dismisses them as nothing more than boring bastards. Turning slightly, he addresses someone directly, asking for confirmation. A blue aura flares around him as he declares, "This is what they get for playing Bull Rush." His resolve unwavering, he demands they leave if they refuse to answer. However, a cloaked figure stands before him, their voice calm and defiant, assuring him that nothing will change, even if he dies. His eyes flash crimson, a surge of power or anger distorting his expression as he begins to question what that woman even did. The involvement of 3 royalties would shake the entire kingdom to its core. Even Queen Linus herself would struggle with such a situation, leaving one to wonder the reason for the cloaked figure's unwavering confidence. A lone figure, shrouded in dark robes, stands with clasped hands amidst a multitude of flickering candles, their light barely piercing the oppressive darkness of a foreboding forest where a massive, shadowy presence looms. Suddenly, a violent spray of blood erupts, accompanied by pained cries. As Davy lies on the ground, watching a figure flee into the distance, he questions their foolishness, asking if they still haven't run away. Rising to his feet, staff in hand, he gazes down at a small, shadowy presence, wondering if they remain oblivious to the unfolding events. Meanwhile, 2 cloaked figures stand in the forest, one issuing a terse command, "Go and tell her." The cloaked figure then declares their intent, vowing to destroy everything, even if she doesn't nag them. Suddenly, multiple glowing projectiles streak towards Davy, forcing him into the air. But he lands with a determined expression, his sword at his side, a dark energy emanating from his chest. He finds himself surrounded, multiple figures closing in, their voices taunting him about fighting them all alone. But a projectile, initially appearing as a threat, is revealed to be nothing more than a decoy, a random movement skill designed to mislead. The distraction works, and he's immediately struck by a barrage of glowing blue projectiles, their impact causing a diffusion of energy around him. Collapsing to the ground, he struggles to comprehend how his shield could have been breached. But then, pushing himself back to his feet, he declares that while his attackers might be capable assassins, they are no true warriors, and it is time to show them what a real one is. From a distance, the cloaked figure observes, uttering a chilling proverb, "If there's no one left to protect, it's an abandoned world. Remember that." With a surge of dark energy emanating from his form, his eyes glowing crimson, Davy prepares to unleash his full power against the remaining assailants. He launches himself into the air, striking at his foes and challenging them to bring more if they hope to defeat him. As the battle rages, one of the assailants breaks rank and flees, while the others continue their desperate fight. As the green, blade-like energy constructs continued their assault, he met the impact with a flash of light, the force pushing him back. The relentless barrage of blades pressed against him, yet he remained unyielding. One of his attackers scoffed, declaring the green constructs weren't even worth a branch. Davy simply looked up, his expression unreadable. With a sudden surge of power, a lock-on system message flashed as he reached out, revealing he had anticipated this moment all along. A crimson energy lashed out, Davy asserting that without the random movement skill, escape was impossible. He unleashed a devastating combination, engulfing an assailant in a maelstrom of confuse, lower resist, and soul explosion. The impact was brutal, and he acknowledged the harshness of his methods, a lesson learned from his enemies. The assailant fell, meeting a proper end at his hands. Standing alone in a desolate, rocky expanse, Davy Orwain observes a distant, glowing point of interest. A voice declares the event to be a perfect assassination, a sentiment echoed with chilling certainty. A faint purple mist swirls, a lingering trace of magic in the air. Daphne turns, her expression concerned, asking, "How did it go?" Davy, his back to her, delivers a grim report, revealing that all the guards at the northern gate have been wiped out. The desolate landscape below confirms the devastating loss. He turns to face her, his voice laced with disbelief. "They've been wiped out?" Daphne simply confirms, "Yes." She then presses for more details, and about those, referring to the initial assessment that they would have just been a few goblin knights. The orange-haired informant interjects, her skepticism clear. "Just how are you so sure of that?" As the scene of destruction reinforces the idea that it was just goblins. She continues, incredulous, "But you're telling me that 20 people went and died before Besfus cuts her off, revealing the Black Knights were part of that raid." The image below shows the aftermath, hinting at a more formidable enemy. A cloaked figure, their face obscured, concludes the discussion with a cautious tone. "We are still investigating what happened." A voice muses on the unexpected development, noting that Prince Davy now seems to have a helper. Seated on an ornate throne, Alice expresses her disbelief, wondering who would possibly aid those Halfies. Her frustration is palpable, her eyes closed in a moment of vexation. Meanwhile, Barisi, reviewing some information, considers the implications of a millionth occurrence, before declaring that he will soon know the outcome, reminding someone that the consequence for working with a failure is always failure itself. In another chamber, the unnamed green-haired brother looks down with concern, aware of the stakes if he doesn't succeed this time. Barisi continues his stern pronouncements, stating that their contract will terminate, and he will continue his life as he has for years, as dictated by the Black Moon Queen. A Gothic castle stands under the full moon, as a voice acknowledges the directive, promising to keep it in mind. Under a bright, clear sky, a desperate cry echoes, "Brother! Brother!" Winky and her brother race towards a distant stronghold, identifying it as the Polisti Kingdom. Having finally arrived at their destination, the green-haired prince stands on a high balcony, taking in the sprawling grandeur of the Polisti Kingdom, a city far smaller than his old-world Singapore, yet built on an immense scale, making it one of the continent's most powerful. A smile touches his lips as Winky observes his expression, noting his obvious happiness. And this magnificent city is also the designated venue for the Continental Swordsmanship Competition, its bustling streets now teeming with hopefuls and spectators. From a hidden vantage point, two unseen figures observe the throngs, one remarking on the keen eye for talent, while the other dismisses the spectacle as utterly barbarous. Still disoriented, he questions their current location, noting the strange aura filling the room and his own lingering weakness from the mana extraction. He continues, explaining that each kingdom hosts the main event, making the competition ultimately a battle between countries. While finding it a bit boring to see the same participants, he acknowledges it's a crucial competition for the next generation, one that the entire continent will closely follow. Suddenly, Winky, her small face contorted in frustration, demands to know if he's deliberately ignoring her. Davy turns to her, a slight smile playing on his lips, assuring the princess that he is, of course, there to have a date with her. His words are a playful facade, however, as his true power, that of a mid-level wizard, begins to flare with a crimson aura, a name lost in the Continental Swordsman's history, yet still amazing for his age, something else entirely. Winky, seemingly unfazed by his display, muses that the Empress is the princess of the Pelian Empire. Davy, his expression serious once more, exclaims in disbelief, wondering how she could possibly not know such a name known by everyone in the Pelian Kingdom. He reflects internally, admitting that while he's normally quite confident in his memory, it seems someone new appeared while he was in a coma. The narrative shifts to introduce a significant figure, Elena de Fallon, standing alone against a stark, ethereal backdrop. She is known as the Fallon Kingdom's only princess, one of 9 royal daughters. And not just any princess, but the crown prince's favorite sister. The reason for this special favor is simple: she is a god sword wielder. The very mention of a god sword wielder elicits a gasp, as a magnificent, glowing blade descends from the heavens. This incredible skill stems from her first teacher, the Empress, who was herself the legendary sword goddess. Another figure, a formidable warrior, also possessed remarkable abilities, wielding a blade known as the Demon Lord's Sword, a name so potent it was said to make ears bleed upon hearing it. The Empress herself seems to recall this formidable weapon, wondering if it was indeed this sword killer, the legendary blade of the Demon Lord. This history stands in stark contrast to the current situation, with Pegasus Doke Go-jun at the Demonic Academy. He explains that it's normal for someone from this place to leave a mark somewhere, but it still feels strange to him. Meanwhile, Daphne looks at a ring in her hand, a soft no escaping her lips as she questions what it could be. The conversation returns to the legendary god sword, Calderas, a blade said to have never been damaged. It's rumored to possess an absorbed ego, manifesting magic. This ego, a sword spirit, is born from its maker's soul and the swordsman's love, truly earning its title as a god sword. The green-haired prince wonders about the priceless nature of such swords, suggesting they should be kept clean, but Davy senses there's more to the story. His brother confirms Davy's suspicion with a sharp exclamation. Davy's mind races, connecting the dots to the sword spirit, pondering why he should concern himself with the personal affairs of Prince Calderas, his uncle, who should be handling such matters. He lets out a soft sigh, his expression one of mild annoyance as Amy, his attendant, questions his lack of enthusiasm for the upcoming event. She beams, reminding him that it is his very first banquet, a grand occasion. But he simply dismisses her excitement, stating that his dignity already represents his own kingdom, even if he doesn't particularly care for such formalities. He insists he is merely a spectator to these royal affairs, which include the Continental Swordsmanship Coalition Petition, a gathering where representatives from various countries meet to discuss matters of great importance. Amy, meanwhile, spots his brother among the attendees, a familiar face in the bustling crowd. She continues to press him, reminding him that royalties are very simple-natured, and he should simply enjoy himself. She even suggests he could pretend to be a fairy, a playful jab at his detached demeanor. Amy then points out a small, glowing ring on her finger, a subtle hint at something more. From a grand balcony overlooking the bustling hall, a blonde noblewoman turns to the orange-haired informant, her voice a hushed inquiry, asking if she was indeed addressing Her Majesty. Her gaze fixed forward, The blonde noblewoman then declared the true purpose of this gathering, insisting that everyone should be gracious, as it was a chance for the younger generation to forge new friendships. The orange-haired informant scoffed at the notion of friendships, her thoughts drifting to a recent visit to a village, wondering how it had been and if they had seen the stadium. Gently touching a vibrant pink rose, she mused aloud that the experience hadn't been too bad. Holding the fragrant bloom to her face, she added with a hint of disdain, considering it was such a barbarous place. The grand hall buzzed with anticipation, ready to host the continental swordsmanship competition. Among the many observers, the orange-haired informant and the green-haired brother stood together, their gazes fixed on the unfolding scene. As a hand delicately held a glass of wine, a thought drifted through the air. Are these truly all the participants of the continental swordsmanship competition? Davy, observing the youthful crowd, couldn't help but wonder. They all looked so young, especially for an age-restricted competition. Meanwhile, the orange-haired informant remarked, there are few people accompanying the participants, like Winley and I, but still quite a few young ones. And out of all the people present, one individual stood out as the most popular. Davy's eyes widened in surprise as he heard the introduction. Nice to meet you. I'm the Yggdrasil Kingdom's prince. The newly introduced Pegasus Doke Go-jun greeted the crowd, while Davy, still processing, considered introducing himself as well. As Davy Orwain steps into the bustling hall, his companions Daphne and Sister Hypoxia follow close behind, and he muses that the abilities of some participants are quite obvious. Meanwhile, another young man, Winley, is also drawing a fair amount of attention, surrounded by a small group of admirers, including the tiny fairy Winky. The atmosphere is quite lively, he thinks, wondering how he could possibly get close to the prince amidst such a crowd. Just then, Davy approaches, extending a hand and asking Winley if he'd like to dance, to which Winky enthusiastically agrees, congratulating him as a prince. But before Winley can respond, a sudden gust of wind, accompanied by a sharp flap sound, sends both him and Winky tumbling to the ground, as Pegasus Doke Go-jun appears, looking down at them with a smirk. With a condescending smile, Pegasus Doke Go-jun advises the fallen youth to simply enjoy his youth. An announcement echoes through the hall, proclaiming the return of Lady Marin. A woman in an elegant gown, Elena de Fallon, extends her hand, stating that she will decide with whom she dances. Davy turns to Daphne, surprised, asking if she truly doesn't know the woman, despite being the only lady he entered the competition with, and Daphne confirms his observation. Winky, the small fairy, asks if Winley is feeling a bit upset, wondering if the situation might be too much for her. Winley, however, remains resolute, stating that she is about to enter the competition. She asserts that if she thinks of herself as a princess, she will achieve nothing but an empty dream, and Davy, observing from a distance, listens intently. Standing with Daphne and Sister Hypoxia, Davy reflects on the nature of dreams, musing that if one doesn't pursue them, they remain just that, dreams. He considers that a dream is something to be savored and pursued leisurely, not something to be rushed. Meanwhile, Winky encourages Winley, reminding her that a dream is something to be enjoyed throughout one's life, just like her grandfather. The small fairy smiles brightly, her words a beacon of support. Suddenly, Besvis approaches Winley, addressing her formally as Princess Winley, interrupting her conversation. With the orange-haired informant standing nearby, Besvis then questions the identity of the slimy guy he was observing, clearly referring to Davy. As the conversation continues, Davy wonders if the newcomer knows Winley, his gaze fixed on the unfolding scene. Winley, her expression a mix of surprise and discomfort, finds herself in an unexpected predicament. A hand reaches out, grasping hers. As a young man kneels before her, his voice resonating with a formal request. Would you be willing to give me the honor of marriage, princess? Winley's brother steps forward, gently pulling her hand away, and addresses the suitor with a polite but firm tone. Excuse me, Prince Valayan. I'm currently having a conversation with my brother. A subtle click of his tongue escapes Davy, his expression unreadable as he observes the unfolding drama. Valayan, realizing his faux pas, quickly bows his head, offering a sincere apology for his lack of manners. He then formally introduces himself, declaring, I am Boltiz Kingdom's 7th prince, Valayan du Boltiz. Stepping forward, Davy finally speaks, introducing himself with quiet authority. I am Davy Alrone. As the air crackles with an almost palpable tension, Valayan, surrounded by a vibrant yellow aura, confronts the newly introduced Prince Davy, his voice laced with a challenging edge. He demands to know what brings him to this place, to which Davy calmly replies that he came to see the competition participate. Valetian's expression hardens slightly as he processes the response, questioning if Davy truly isn't here in his capacity as a prince. With a polite, almost dismissive smile, Davy simply wishes him a pleasant stay, leaving Valayan momentarily speechless. Turning his attention from Davy, Valayan then addresses Princess Winley, his voice shifting to a more theatrical tone. He declares his intention to win the competition in her honor, urging her to watch closely as he performs. Winley looks up at him, her expression unreadable, as Valayan continues, suggesting she is being rude to the other participants. He adds a subtle threat, implying the competition wouldn't be fun if he were to make his words a reality. Winley turns away, her voice firm, reminding him that her twin brother is also in the competition and asserting that she is in control of her own fate. She looks down, her voice firm as she questions why he doesn't simply let the matter conclude. However, a stern expression crosses Valishan's face as he considers her words. He clearly has no intention of backing down, his voice rising in challenge, accusing Princess Winley of looking down on him. Without warning, Valian lunges, seizing her arm with a harsh grip, his aggression escalating beyond words. His eye glows with a fierce, red intensity, his resolve hardening. He reaches out, his patience clearly exhausted, ready to take further action. But before his hand can connect, a swift foot descends, pinning his hand to the ground, a voice feigning an apology for a slipped hand. Davy stands between them, his grip firm on Valishan's wrist, Winley now safely behind him. He glares at Valian, warning him not to lay a hand on his precious sister, who can only groan in frustration. Still holding Valian down, Davy warns him to keep his hands off his sister, but the prince, his face contorted in rage, curses him as a bastard, only for Davy to reiterate his threat. Valishan's hand twitches, a low growl escaping him. His eyes narrow, a dangerous glint appearing as he glares up. A single white glove lies discarded on the polished floor. Rising to his feet, Valian retrieves the glove, then, with a furious declaration, challenges Davy to a duel. Before Davy can respond, Daphne steps forward, her voice sharp as she tells Prince Valian that enough is enough, while Winley, her small wings fluttering, demands he stay out of this. Valian, however, remains resolute, his expression firm as he declares his honor as a knight demands this action. Daphne attempts to reason with him, reminding him of the consequences of such a public display, but Prince Valian du Boltais seems beyond persuasion. From a distance, the orange-haired informant watches the unfolding drama with keen interest. Valian, his expression firm, continues to press the issue, stating he has been observing the situation and now wishes to ask Davy properly if he truly believes he has the right to reclaim his honor. Davy remains silent, processing the weight of the question. The Phalon Empire, founded by an ancient hero, stands as one of the three great continents. It is said that within its history, there were those who did not fit into the conventional mold, instead pursuing absolute strength, their power manifesting in legendary artifacts like the glowing sword. These individuals, who perfected their own strength, could suppress even monsters and dragons with a single swing of their blade. A sudden flash of lightning illuminates an ethereal structure, as a voice questions, Habs? A young woman with flowing orange hair turns slightly, her gaze distant. Her expression is serene, yet focused. This is Princess Ileana of the Phalon Empire, a figure connected to the Emperor's forbidden secrets. Reaching out a hand, a soft glow emanates from her palm, confirming, it worked. He watches her, a thought lingering in his mind about the Emperor's unprecedented actions to bestow such a reward upon a mere woman. He remembers Habs as quite handsome, yet undeniably frail, a memory of his green-haired brother confronting the man, demanding his attention. But for Habs to now be a woman, holding such status, the orange-haired princess's expression tightens, a sharp sound escaping her. She seems to acknowledge his unspoken thought, a hesitant that, and well, escaping her lips, while he considers the implications. With a polite, excuse me, she turns away, a soft, almost nervous chuckle following her. Her eyes, however, betray a deeper contemplation, a silent ellipsis hanging in the air. Davy, with a broad, dismissive smile, decides to simply just forget it, letting out a light laugh. Meanwhile, the green-haired brother watches Princess Ileana, a profound question echoing in his mind. How did that happen? His brother's voice cuts through the air, calling out, "Brother," snapping Davy's attention as he questions, "What's going on?" The truth is then laid bare. Princess Ileana de Phalon is, in fact, Prince Valian J. The Empress's sword goddess, Elena de Phalon, bore the heavy crown of her birthright as a lady. Meanwhile, Prince Valian, known for his arrogance, stood before a gathering of nobles, challenging their very honor. He was as charismatic as he was famous, a stark contrast to the other nobles, not just the arrogant Valian. An older noble then addressed the green-haired prince and his companion, stating that if he truly considered himself a knight with a code of honor, he should act accordingly. He demanded an apology to all his guests, a request that drew a pained groan from Davy and a hesitant that from Winky. The green-haired prince, despite his sister's actions and position, couldn't bring himself to abandon her, and with a determined step, he moved forward. Davy watched, his expression tight, muttering, "Look at this." To the older noble's surprise, the green-haired prince bowed deeply, declaring, "I accept." Davy cried out, "Brother," as the prince looked up, asking, "What are you talking about?" Before Davy finished, "You won't be able to forgive me." He remembers the stories of those who fought diseases and saved countless people, but also those who pursued only absolute strength. Meanwhile, the older noble, holding up a pristine white glove, demands an apology from the green-haired prince, who, with a heavy heart, accepts the humiliating terms. Davy, observing the scene, walks away, a master of his own fate. While the green-haired prince, still reeling from the encounter, thinks of his sister, apologizing internally for being a disgrace. His sister, Princess Winley watches him with concern. The older noble continues to berate the prince, telling him he swings his sword like an amateur, and that he should just give in if he knew his place, leaving the prince stunned. Prince Valayan then steps forward, calmly telling the green-haired prince that it's fine. The heavy boot of a noble still pressed down on the green-haired prince's head, a stark demonstration of power for the observing crowd. Valayan, having stepped forward, addressed the situation with a firm resolve, stating that such an incident would not happen again, but warned of consequences should he be forced to retreat. A confident smile played on his lips as he held a ceremonial cross, his presence commanding the attention of the hall. And he looked down at the still prostrate prince, granting him permission to begin whatever action he intended. Valayan, his sword drawn and ready, challenges his opponent, urging them not to delay the inevitable. However, a very good idea suddenly strikes him. And Valayan, unaware of the shift, declares he won't hold back any longer. Before he can even move, a blinding flash erupts. As Davy Orwain closes the distance in an instant, his sword already connecting with Valayan, who recoils in utter shock. The force of the blow sends him tumbling through the air, leaving him to wonder, how stupid. Another explosive impact follows, as he realizes, I thought I was fast enough, but Davy's relentless assault continues, his blade striking again and again, overwhelming the prince. A sharp pain lances through his hands, the unexpected impact leaving him stunned. Before he can even register the damage, another swift sword strike connects. The force sends him tumbling, collapsing onto the ornate floor. Struggling to comprehend the speed of his opponent, he questions the impossible feat he just witnessed. A wave of humiliation washes over him, his pride wounded by the swift defeat. His injured hand throbs, a stark reminder of his unexpected vulnerability. Rising to his feet, his sword now firmly in hand, he vows vengeance against his attacker. Despite the overwhelming skill displayed, Valayan refuses to accept defeat, declaring that Davy Orwain will never truly overcome him. Two swords clash with a sharp, metallic ring, the force of the impact sending vibrations through the air. Davy's grip strains, his knuckles white as he struggles against an unseen pressure, a frustrated curse escaping his lips. His eyes narrow, observing the overwhelming power before him. The dark-clad swordsman, a figure of absolute strength, stands unyielding, his presence alone a testament to his tyrannical might. Davy's mind reels, unable to comprehend the sheer disparity in power. A swift, brutal strike connects, sending a spray of blood into the air as he recoils. From a distance, the orange-haired informant watches, her expression a mix of shock and indignation. His hand trembles on the sword hilt, his thoughts consumed by a single, desperate question. An orange-haired informant watches the battle unfold, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock and disbelief. As a powerful, arcing sword strike cuts through the air, Davy Orwain can only wonder if he is truly the one being pushed back so relentlessly. The informant gasps, watching as the dark-clad swordsman stands victorious over a defeated Davy, who lies injured on the ground. You got hit again, she exclaims, her voice laced with frustration. You bastard. Her hand clenches into a tight fist, her brow furrowed in deep concern. She mutters to herself, how many times has he been hit? Even if he's careful, he'd get hit 3 times. Is this the best we can do? Gritting her teeth, she acknowledges the grim reality. It's not much, is he? Before urging him on, wait up. She cuts him off, her patience wearing thin, demanding he simply demonstrate his abilities rather than speak of them, as he mutters the title, the Sword God. Pressing him further, she asks for his true thoughts on the matter, to which he simply replies that one must train in alone. He recalls his own beginnings, learning swordsmanship with a simple wooden blade. For him, it was always about the raw execution, just as the moves themselves needed to happen. This was the very sword art that the legendary sword god himself had wielded. An art not merely learned, but forged and created within his own being. Davy, however, finds himself struggling with the concept, admitting that while he understands the words, the sword art itself feels different. The informant watches him, her expression unreadable as he grapples with his thoughts. A wave of self-doubt washes over him, as he laments his own perceived inadequacy, concluding that if she hadn't shown him the way to society, she shouldn't blame him for his current state. Sister Hypoxia's voice echoes, reminding him that true mastery isn't about possessing an art, but about the one you can truly wield, prompting Davy to wonder why such a simple truth feels so profound. Could it be because of its overwhelming strength? He muses, before dismissing the thought entirely. No, that's not it. The sword god's art isn't merely about being heavy or smart in combat, which is why it's often considered an evil sword art. It's not an art meant to protect or save, but one created solely for the sake of a sword god. Designed to make opponents careless, turn them into fools, and ultimately use their own attacks against them. It is profoundly different, for the sword goddess's path is not merely to become the strongest swordsman, but to transcend that very notion. A sharp, metallic slip echoes through the hall as 2 blades, one glowing orange and the other of vibrant blue, meet with a jarring scrape. Before Davy Orwain stands calmly over a defeated foe, his own blade held steady, as the sound of a heavy thud reverberates. He surveys the assembled crowd, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, understanding that the more witnesses there are to his display, the more potent his unique sword art becomes. Just like this very moment, a low murmur begins to ripple through the onlookers, a growing buzz of disbelief and awe. From the periphery, Winky sighs, wondering aloud if he is a genius or merely fearless, a psychopath even, as Davy Orwain calls out to her, asking if she is all right. With his sword resting casually on his shoulder, he simply grins, declaring the whole affair to be so fun. The orange-haired informant watches, surprised that he remains uncompromised by the sword god's art, while the green-haired brother adds that he is now facing the Empress herself. A brilliant blue glow emanates from Sister Hypoxia's sword, her eye burning with fury as she snarls, a chilling promise to kill him. Davy Orwain stands ready, facing the enraged Empress, her glowing blade poised for a deadly confrontation, the tension in the hall palpable. A powerful sword aura erupts, causing Davy to exclaim in surprise, while his green-haired brother shouts that Bartion is crazy. He realizes it's the Empress's sword aura, a chilling power that once pinned him down, making him wonder if he's facing another such overwhelming force. He thinks to himself that he won't be able to hold back anymore. And furthermore, the cold gaze from her is truly getting to him. Standing in the grand hall, observed by the orange-haired informant, Winky, Prince Valayan, and Princess Ileana, he prepares for the inevitable. As their feet stand poised, a faint blue energy begins to emanate from his own. Got you, Sister Hypoxia declares, her eyes fixed on him, as his own eyes glow crimson in response. A sudden blur of motion fills the air, followed by the terrifying sweep of a blue sword aura. He barely has time to register the sudden movement, a blur of motion that sends him reeling. Where did she even come from? He's thrown violently through the air, his mind still trying to catch up, as the impact sends a jolt through him. Ayak! The woman's fury is palpable, a sharp "you bastard," echoing, as she delivers a brutal kick. He crashes backward, shattering a decorative vase into countless pieces, the force leaving him stunned. An observer watches, a silent gasp escaping her lips, as the angry woman glares down at him. He lies sprawled on the ground, groaning, "Oh, my back." Still reeling from the impact, he groans, acknowledging the harsh landing. A murmur ripples through the assembled crowd, their attention drawn to the fallen figure, as someone questions why Bartion is on the ground. Above him, the Empress sword goddess, staff in hand, looks down with a satisfied smirk, confirming her triumph. A soft, almost ethereal sound echoes through the grand, empty hall, as a voice laments that Prince Valishan's performance was truly disappointing, while acknowledging that Prince Orwain, however, had done exceptionally well. Valayan, still reeling from the outcome, questions Orwain's sudden prowess, reminding him that he was in a coma just a few months prior, to which Orwain casually replies that it was the reason he couldn't properly wield a sword for some time. He dismisses the past with a simple, "Things went by so fast," prompting Valayan to ask if he somehow gave up his life to a demon. A defeated sigh escapes Valayan as he sits dejectedly on the floor, the weight of his loss heavy upon him. Meanwhile, Orwain's hand, still gripping his sword, remains steady and poised. From a distance, Princess Ileana watches the scene unfold, a subtle smile playing on her lips as she declares, "This was a good show." Her eyes, however, betray a deeper interest, glowing with an intense, golden light. As she prepares to depart, a voice calls out, addressing her as Mom Ileana, before another urgently requests her to wait, calling her princess. Later, or perhaps in a memory, Princess Ileana stands at an altar in a wedding gown, then observes a gathering where Davy Orwain and Valayan Duboltis are also present. Meanwhile, Valishan's green-haired brother admonishes him, accusing him of being too reckless. Davy, reflecting on recent events, acknowledges that while the host might have downplayed it, there was indeed a significant commotion. His green-haired brother questions his casual attitude, but Davy dismisses it, stating that everything resolved well. The green-haired brother expresses concern that someone's attitude is worsening, despite their skills not improving, then discusses with Valayan how their performance at recent gatherings has been observed. Elsewhere, Winky complains about a truly terrible individual who has been relentlessly pursuing her. Davy seems oblivious to her distress, but Winky warns him that while he might have been lucky this time, he shouldn't expect the same fortune in the future. Still concerned about the terrible guy chasing her, Winky warns him that his luck might run out if he keeps acting so recklessly, but Davy simply dismisses her worries with a casual, "I'd rather that you." Meanwhile, in a different chamber, Valishan's green-haired brother expresses his frustration, asking Valayan why he always causes such insane incidents, to which Valayan retorts, "Don't treat me like a child." His brother, however, remains unconvinced, insisting that he'll heed his advice since he's the older brother. A confident smile plays on Valishan's lips as he listens, seemingly unconcerned by his brother's admonishments. His brother continues, acknowledging Valishan's strength, but adding, "But actually, I'm a little worried for my brother after all." Valishan's expression shifts, a faint groan escaping him as he seems to finally register the weight of his brother's concern. A narration box declares that he never knew he'd be defeated so soundly, as both brothers stare in disbelief at something off-panel, while Davy stands calmly in the background. The object of their dismay is revealed to be a shattered magical barrier, its intricate design now broken into countless fragments. as the green-haired brother cries out in anguish, pleading, "My lord, please stop." Valerian looks on in utter despair, the scene implying Davy's hand in the destruction. Despite his earlier nonchalance, the consequences of Davy's actions weigh heavily on others, as Valerian du Boltes finds himself restrained, letting out a frustrated grunt. He glares, his voice rising in indignation, declaring that no one dares shame him, the future prince of the Beloit Empire. With a radiant appearance and outstanding talent, Valerian stands before a cheering crowd, confidently asserting that there are few things in this world he cannot possess. His thoughts then turn to Princess Ileana, a figure of significant standing. Later, Valerian and his green-haired brother appear distraught, as the prince laments his own self-righteousness, recalling how he chose her as his maid to humble her, never expecting her to become a princess, let alone a subordinate. He continues, reflecting on how the marriage talks with the Bonnie Queen were progressing well, but now, everything has changed. His frustration boils over as he stares at a shattered magical barrier, demanding to know why he must endure such a predicament. With a final, furious outburst, he commands the source of his troubles to disappear. With a sudden, violent outburst, a chair is sent flying across the room. As Davy stands poised, having just unleashed his frustration, the ornate furniture lies shattered on the polished floor. Elsewhere, Valetian's hand clenches, a chilling smile spreading across his lips as he whispers, "I'll definitely kill him." Huh. He turns to an unseen presence, his voice a low, dangerous inquiry. "Do you wish to kill?" The rich fabric of his noble attire shifts with the subtle movement. His gaze remains fixed, repeating the question with an unsettling intensity. "Do you wish to kill him?" A faint, ominous glow emanates from his eyes as his tone sharpens, demanding, "I asked, who the hell are you?" Then, his hand crackles with vibrant magical energy, offering a chilling promise. "I can help you, my cute." A new figure, her long red hair flowing around her, manifests a potent purple aura, her eyes glowing with an intense, almost predatory light. She speaks with chilling resolve, promising to tear flesh and crush bones, before pausing to inquire about the name of the one she addresses. After a moment, she reveals her own identity, declaring herself as Sierra. Her form now fully visible, adorned in a dark, elegant dress, Sierra challenges her unseen interlocutor, asking if they will remember her name. Valetian's amber eyes narrow slightly, as he listens intently to her words. A subtle smile plays on his lips, as he acknowledges her acceptance with a simple, approving good. Sierra's expression turns more sinister, her fangs subtly visible, as she confidently declares that the task can be left entirely to her. Within the opulent, dark chamber, the understanding is clear. She is now free to act as she pleases. Moments later, Sierra lies sprawled on the ornate floor, a faint purple aura still clinging to her, hinting at the immense power she has just wielded or received. A grand arena stands under a brilliant blue sky, its towering walls hinting at the spectacles held within. Inside, Valerian addresses a figure with a tone of urgency, apologizing as he insists he cannot allow a certain action, hinting that the Empress Sword Goddess will soon intervene. As if in response, a soft tuck sound accompanies a faint glow emanating from Davy's hand, a confident smirk spreading across his face. Later, in a different chamber, he muses aloud that he is still a long way from his goal, leaving the orange-haired informant looking utterly bewildered. With a soft rustle, he turns away, dismissing his own words as mere self-talk, before decisively stating that other matters can wait, and it is time to move. Meanwhile, the green-haired brother stands in another room, a look of utter astonishment on his face, a silent wah escaping him. Finally, the arena is revealed in its full glory, now bustling with spectators, as Davy stands alone in its vast center. Valerian sits alone on a stone bench, his long, reddish-brown hair falling forward to obscure his face, as the quiet sounds of the arena echo around him. A roar of excitement echoes through the grand arena, the stands packed with an eager crowd. Davy Orwain looks up at the spectacle, the collective cheer of the spectators washing over him. As he makes his way through the bustling throng, the afternoon matchup is about to begin, with Baris's match scheduled for later. The sheer passion of the crowd is palpable. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through the noise, calling out to him. He finds Winky Elrone waiting for him in a private room, asking if he's late, to which she simply replies, "Nope." With his eyes closed, he thinks to himself that he can't tell her the truth about feigning illness to skip the amateur morning matches, even if it means acting sick until he dies. He reflects on how his journey led him to acquire the power to defeat demons and even royalty, yet he still feels limited, unable to achieve complete mastery. Even now, he finds himself in a precarious position, forced to feign illness in the temple's washroom. A bead of sweat rolls down his temple as he realizes that if this charade continues, he'll either have to use his holy power and risk exposure, or face the consequences. Meanwhile, his orange-haired informant points excitedly, drawing the attention of the green-haired prince to something significant, a badge. From their royal box, Davy and Winky observe the bustling arena, where the crowd's roar signals the imminent start of a match, their adoration for the combatants palpable. As he reviews the scroll detailing the matchups, he prepares to discover his opponent. With a determined stride, he makes his way towards the arena floor. A sudden gasp escapes him, his eyes widening in utter surprise. This matchup is truly cruel. He stands alone in the center of the grand arena, the roar of the crowd a distant hum. The rules of engagement are clear, blades are dulled, and life-threatening attacks are strictly forbidden. From the stands, his green-haired companion cautions him, reminding him that even surrounding his sword with mana for an attack could lead to a penalty, urging him to be careful. Davy remains focused, absorbing the information. The orange-haired informant remarks on the overwhelming cheers of the crowd, to which the green-haired prince readily agrees. He reassures her, mentioning that Baybise is with him, so everything should be fine. After all, he has insurance. As the two swordsmen prepare to face each other, the tension in the arena becomes palpable. The roar of the crowd fills the arena, a cacophony of anticipation. As the combatants take their positions, a sudden, sharp impact echoes through the space, signaling the official start of the match. Valayan lands lightly, his gaze fixed on Davy. From the stands, the green-haired brother observes, remarking to the orange-haired informant that Valishan's sword movements from yesterday's match were surprisingly unpredictable. He explains that Valayan fights without mana, relying solely on his sword to overwhelm opponents, a style that allows him to dominate. Back in the arena, a golden aura begins to shimmer around Davy. As he unleashes a mana-infused strike, a move Valayan might not be equipped to handle. He continues his assault, a powerful mana-infused strike erupting from his form. As Valayan meets it head-on with his blade, the impact sending ripples of energy across the arena. The force of the blow strains Valishan's defense. But he holds firm, blocking the attack completely. Despite the successful block, the sheer kinetic energy sends him flying backward, tumbling through the air. From the stands, the green-haired prince and the orange-haired informant watch the spectacle unfold, a question hanging in the air. Davy, observing his opponent, wonders if Valayan has truly grown stronger since yesterday, dismissing the notion that even a genius could achieve such physical ability without immense effort, yet acknowledging that his unbridled talent is a different story entirely, making him a true monster. Even the valiant Prince Valayan would reach his limits before long, but Davy's eyes widen in surprise. Princess Ileana, too, feels a strange sensation, wondering what exactly is happening. The green-haired brother watches with an expression of awe. Meanwhile, Valayan, having been knocked to the ground, reflects that he has never seen such quick backflips before and questions if he is still not strong enough, resolving to practice harder. Davy remains focused, his expression unreadable. The green-haired brother remarks to Winky that Davy has indeed gotten better. Winky, with a determined smile, declares her ambition to become a knight when she grows up. Davy considers that Valayan must have invited him to show how much he had improved, and he'll always. Winley will protect Appa, a determined thought echoes, as 6 years have passed since a pivotal moment. The green-haired brother, observing the aftermath, acknowledges the immense effort put in. He muses on the impossibility of such strength being achieved in a short time frame, wondering about the true nature of the prince. It's as if he's a completely different person, he considers, and a strange and dangerous feeling emanates from the magical display. Winley watches, a question mark hanging over her head in surprise. A sword gleams in the arena, prompting the question, "What's this?" From above, the green-haired brother looks down at Valayan, thinking, "I don't expect you from long ago, Prince." Valayan, standing firm, recognizes his opponent's persistence and skill, resolving to stay alert against such fast movements. Determined, Valayan declares his intention to end the confrontation. Gripping his sword with renewed resolve, he challenges his opponent to resist his next move, unleashing a powerful, sweeping arc of his blade that forces Davy to brace for impact. The sudden intensity of the assault makes Davy's eyes widen. Realizing this could be the decisive moment as he struggles to parry the relentless blows, his sword clashing against Valishan's with a strained gasp. Valayan continues his rapid, blurring assault. A menacing grin spreading across his face, his eyes glowing crimson as he presses his advantage with slicing precision. Davy's eyes widen further in alarm. Caught off guard by the sheer ferocity of the attack as Valayan unleashes a flurry of glowing sword arcs, pushing his opponent back with overwhelming force. As Valishan's blade continues its relentless assault, a desperate thought echoes, questioning the will to survive. Suddenly, Davy's mind races, a new companion flashing before his eyes. The realization strikes him with visceral force, red energy crackling around his face as his eyes widen in shock. A powerful surge of mana erupts, swirling with ominous red and purple hues, its flow overwhelming. Davy clutches his chest in agony, the raw, crimson mana violently emanating from his very being. His vision blurs with the surging power, a single word escaping his lips. As the vortex of energy intensifies around him, the chilling truth dawns. He is going to die. Under the pale moonlight, a lone figure continues his relentless training, the silence of the night broken only by the whisper of his movements. His sword arcs through the air, leaving a shimmering trail of blue energy in its wake. A voice calls out, observing his form, remarking that he is practicing well. His younger brother approaches, admitting he couldn't sleep because of the noise, offering an apology. Davy replies that he himself couldn't fall asleep either. He acknowledges his brother's hard work, but expresses his own dissatisfaction with his current skills. His brother challenges him, asking what if he never reaches that satisfaction, and declares his intent to surpass him with his own hands. Davy offers a reassuring smile, telling him not to worry, that he will do well. A soft hum escapes him as he pores over the pages of a book, his mind deep in thought. Meanwhile, his younger brother practices his sword forms, executing each movement with a clean posture and a smooth, honest flow of mana. Though he feels a slight inadequacy, knowing this method is merely a way to compensate for his inherent lack of speed and power. Suddenly, a message arrives, pulling him from his focus. He considers the words, dismissing them as irrelevant, for the sender is his rival, yet a curious hum escapes him, as if something unexpected has caught his attention. A familiar voice instructs him to relax and take the hand offered, assuring him that even Davy himself had advised this approach. He complies, accepting the touch. A wave of discomfort washes over him as he's warned it might sting a little. Then, with a sudden flash and a sharp crackle of energy, his eyes begin to glow, a powerful surge coursing through him. Caught off guard, his brother calls out to him, a question in his voice. Davy grips his brother's head, a soft green aura emanating from his hands, as the younger boy struggles, pleading for air. Davy simply states that he isn't resting enough. This unique mana, distinct from the world's natural energy, compels a profound internal activity. Davy continues his explanation, his gaze steady. Then, with a glowing hand, Davy utters an unfamiliar phrase, and the green energy around his brother intensifies dramatically. Overwhelmed, the younger boy feels as if he's been transported to another realm, bewildered by the strange language. Davy's hand glows with a brilliant golden light. His brother's eye, now fully charged, glows with an intense green. As the magical surge subsides, the younger boy looks down, seemingly calmer and more composed. Still recovering from the intense magical transfer, the green-haired brother lay on the ground as Davy reassured him that the insurance wouldn't make him immediately stronger, but would offer a little help. With a soft groan, he managed to sit up, prompting Davy to urge him to get up fully. Davy reached out a hand, reminding his brother he'd catch a cold if he stayed there, and reiterated his promise of insurance. As Davy pulled him up, the green-haired prince playfully complained about his brother's rough handling, noting that Winley would have been much gentler. Davy, however, was unsympathetic, ordering him to hurry to his room and warning that if he fell again, there would be no further gifts. Still a little wobbly, the green-haired brother turned to look back at Davy before slowly making his way out. Later that night, standing under the moonlight, the green-haired brother reflected on the completed insurance and felt a surge of excitement for what tomorrow might bring. A wide smile spread across his face, his eyes glowing with a vibrant, emerald green hue, a clear sign of the power now stirring within him. A surge of vibrant green energy erupts, accompanied by sharp, cutting sounds, as if reality itself is being torn apart. Standing over Valayan, who is now enveloped in a shimmering blue aura, Davy appears to be channeling or manipulating this potent magic. The force of the event causes Valayan to recoil, his expression one of pure shock, as a loud impact reverberates through the air. From a distance, the green-haired brother observes the chaos, wondering aloud, what exactly just transpired. He notes that Prince Felician's sword seemed to glow red, and questions if the figure involved could be Prince Boris. His gaze then shifts, noticing strange crystalline structures forming around Prince Boris, and he tries to identify their nature. All of this unfolds within the grand, echoing confines of a massive arena. It stands stretching high into the sky. Elsewhere, Winky watches with wide-eyed wonder, exclaiming at the incredible display and questioning if such a powerful skill is exclusive to high-ranked mages, before excitedly pointing out that Appa, Davy, had achieved it. However, the green-haired brother is not faring as well, his face now streaked with blood, and his eyes glowing a dangerous crimson as he calls for a timeout. The match between Prince Valayan and Prince Boris has been abruptly paused, leaving a tense silence hanging over the arena. Valayan, his voice sharp with accusation, demands an explanation, declaring that Boris has violated the rules and interfered with the duel, an act that could ignite a war. He threatens not only a penalty, but an official declaration of war against Boris Valti's nation, while the other prince attempts to de-escalate, insisting there must be a misunderstanding. Valayan remains unyielding, his words cutting off any further attempts at diplomacy. A look of desperation crosses Boris' face, as he silently pleads for someone to intervene. Suddenly, a sharp, forceful impact echoes through the air. As Felician's hand, encased in a dark gauntlet, grips a glowing blue crystal, its potent energy radiating outward. He unleashes the power, sending Boris crashing to the ground, incapacitated by the sudden, overwhelming force. From a distance, Princess Ileana watches in horror, her mind reeling at the thought that Valayan may have just taken a life. A pained grimace contorts Felician's face, sweat beading on his brow as the residual energy of his devastating attack courses through him. Meanwhile, Boris' small form plummets downward, crashing onto a jagged, shadowy expanse below. A blinding light erupts within the grand arena, drawing gasps of confusion from the assembled crowd. As a wave of terror washes over them, prompting desperate shouts of, "What is that? Everyone run!" The source of their fear reveals itself as a grotesque, wide grin, its sharp teeth glinting and eyes glowing with malevolent red light. A horrifying transformation that leaves onlookers screaming, "The prince is crazy." Prince Valayan, now a monstrous figure wreathed in dark, swirling energy, unleashes his fury upon the arena, his transformation complete as terrified screams echo through the air. Panicked citizens huddle together, their pleas for someone to control him falling on deaf ears, as the sheer power emanating from him makes any approach impossible. More cries of terror erupt as people scatter, desperately calling for support, their desperate pleas lost in the growing chaos. From a distance, the green-haired prince watches the unfolding nightmare, his expression a mask of utter shock and disbelief, unable to comprehend the horror before him. His eyes widen in horror, a single word escaping his lips as he recognizes the monster, "Bro." He recalls the intensity of the competition, a memory etched into his mind. Standing before shadowy figures, a voice commends him, "Boris, you did well." A slight smile plays on his lips as he wonders, "Did you see?" Davy's surprised expression flashes in his mind, recalling his brother's words, "I made a spell, brother. Brother." He remembers the divine barrier, an expert-level creation woven from pure mana, designed to protect its owner from all danger. He had indeed set it up as a precaution, but Boris knew the true reason for his safety was his own growth, though he still felt it was too much. Holding his younger brother, he thinks of how Davy is only 14 years old, and while his achievement was something to be proud of, he had still barely escaped death. A sigh escapes him as he muses, he's just too well-mannered. Sitting alone, he tells himself, "Stop talking like an old man and go to sleep." A faint heartbeat echoes, as if from a distant memory, and a single word, "brother," hangs in the air. Two young figures, one with dark hair and another with lighter locks, walk away down a long corridor, their footsteps fading into the past. The scene shifts to a grand, ornate hall, dominated by a towering statue, where tiny figures move about, dwarfed by the immense architecture. A close-up reveals Davy, his eyes closed, a faint crimson glow emanating from beneath his lids. He walks alone towards a massive, ornate gate, a sense of purpose in his stride, as the name Valayan echoes in his thoughts. Suddenly, a brilliant, fiery orb of magic materializes, pulsating with intense energy. Two robed figures, one with green hair and another wielding a staff, unleash their power, conjuring a massive explosion of fire. Prince Boris, his green hair visible beneath his hood, stands beside Valayan, both observing the aftermath with a critical eye, as Boris questions the outcome. A colossal, golden-armored figure, its chest glowing with an ominous light, stands as an insurmountable obstacle. Around it, two hooded figures recoil in alarm, one shouting that their foe is too strong and urging the audience to evacuate immediately. The magical barrier, shaped like an hourglass, shimmers precariously, its surface spiderwebbed with glowing cracks as it struggles to hold. Prince Boris, caught in the overwhelming force, is violently thrown downwards, tumbling along the ornate structure with a green aura flaring around him. He looks down, his expression a mix of pain and grim determination, his body still reeling from the impact. Even amidst his struggle, Boris manages to call out a desperate warning, imploring Prince Davy not to approach the perilous scene. Below, an official urgently commands the gathered crowd to move away, their voices echoing across the vast platform. Winky watches the chaos unfold, her voice filled with concern as she softly calls out, wondering about her brother's fate. Meanwhile, Davy appears on a high ledge, observing the unfolding disaster with a sharp gaze, his sudden presence raising questions about his arrival. As the chaos continued, an unnamed fighter pressed his attack against Valayan, who struggled to defend himself. The prince reeled from a brutal blow, blood trickling from his mouth as the impact rattled him. Davy watched the scene unfold, noting the severity of the situation and wondering if these infections were different from what Prince Valayan had faced before. His eyes glowing with a faint crimson light, he decided it was time to act. Meanwhile, a small, red-clad figure at the center of the disturbance began to emit a powerful, chaotic red energy, its presence growing more menacing. The energy pulsed violently, its crimson aura expanding with an ominous hum. As the threat intensified, a faint purple energy began to emanate from Davy, signaling his readiness. Guards desperately tried to form a defensive line, shouting orders to block the advancing figure and prevent it from reaching the prince's side, but their efforts seemed futile against the surging power. Then, with a flash of crimson eyes and a blur of motion, Davy moved, a shadowy streak across the arena. He clenches his jaw, a guttural cry escaping him as an unseen force presses down. His face contorts with the strain, chaotic red energy swirling around him, threatening to overwhelm. From above, Valayan looks down, his voice laced with concern, wondering about Winley's safety amidst the chaos. A fierce resolve hardens his expression, his eyes flaring crimson as he refuses to yield. He knows Winley will be hurt if this continues. With a sudden burst of speed, he commands himself to move. He intercepts Valayan, pushing him forcefully away, sending the prince tumbling through the air. The green-haired brother watches, his eyes wide with disbelief, uttering a stunned "What?" Princess Ileana, equally astonished, questions the identity of the figure before her. Having been forcefully pushed from the immediate danger, Valerian slides across the ground, his body skidding to a halt. Meanwhile, the armored figure's glowing blue sword crashes down with immense force, met by Davy's desperate defense, the impact echoing with a sharp clang and a heavy thud. He strains against the overwhelming pressure, his body grinding under the weight of the descending blade. Without a moment's pause, the armored figure leaps high into the air, preparing a follow-up strike. Their weapon poised, the attacker descends rapidly. A massive sword mountain slash erupts from the blade, engulfing the area in a blinding flash and a thunderous crash. The ground shatters under the sheer force of the impact, dust and debris flying outwards as the earth groans. The devastating force continues to tear through the earth, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. From a safe distance, Valerian, the green-haired brother, and Princess Ileana watch the aftermath in stunned silence, until Valerian calls out, "Hey, are you all right?" A moment later, a voice responds, I'm fine." Dust and debris erupt from an unseen impact point. As a heavy sword plunges into the ground, Princess Ileana collapses to her knees, her face etched with distress. The impact reverberates through her, leaving her visibly shaken. Her eyes widen in terror, reflecting the sudden, overwhelming threat. Meanwhile, Prince Valerian is forced to his knees amidst the swirling dust, his gaze fixed upwards. A guttural growl escapes him, his jaw clenching as veins bulge from his neck in pure, unadulterated rage. With a powerful surge, a vibrant red and orange aura erupts from his form, crackling with raw energy as he rises. He lets out a furious scream, releasing a wave of concentrated power. A blur of motion, and Princess Ileana's blade flashes, forcing Valerian to recoil from the sudden, powerful slash. She presses her advantage, delivering a rapid flurry of attacks that leave him struggling to defend himself. The force of her assault lifts him clean off his feet, sending him tumbling through the air. Without a moment's hesitation, Ileana prepares another swift, devastating strike. She lunges forward, delivering a powerful mid-air kick. The impact lands with explosive force, sending shockwaves rippling across the ground. "I'm not going to lose to a woman," Valerian snarls, slamming his foot down with a defiant roar, creating a powerful shockwave that shatters the ground beneath him. From a distance, a cloaked figure watches the unfolding battle, a soft gasp escaping them as they wonder if this display of power could truly be real. Princess Ileana struggles to rise from the crumbling debris, the impact of Valetian's shockwave still reverberating around her. Valerian looks down, a silent acknowledgement of his power. A triumphant roar echoes through the arena. But Ileana, now standing amidst the ruins, scoffs. "Humph. So that's how it is." From the sidelines, Winky urgently calls out, "Davy, run. Leave this to the princess." Ileana, her voice sharp with challenge, declares, "You're pounding away at a princess and trying mine, huh? Stealing other people's game." With a swift motion, her sword flashes, cutting through the air. Her eyes glow with fierce determination, a silent promise of retaliation. Davy and Winky watch, wide-eyed, as the battle intensifies. A powerful shockwave ripples across the arena, leaving the very structure of the ceiling cracked and observers disoriented. Amidst the chaos, Valerian, bound by glowing blue chains, lunges through the air, his attack aimed directly at Ileana, who is also ensnared but poised to defend. An unseen observer questions the impossible speed of the unfolding events. As Valerian closes the distance, his hand crackles with intense blue energy, the chain scraping against the air with a harsh sound. Meanwhile, Ileana's own hand glows with a fierce reddish-orange aura, her nails elongating into sharp talons, ready to meet the assault. From a safe distance, Davy and Winky watch the escalating violence, the small fairy calling out his name in concern. Before Ileana can fully react, a dark, piercing energy erupts, striking its target with brutal force. A wide, triumphant grin spreads across Valetian's face, his eyes gleaming with malicious satisfaction. Then, with a blinding flash, blood erupts, signaling a grievous wound inflicted in the chaotic exchange. The air still shimmers with residual dark energy, clawing at the atmosphere. A sharp metallic clang cuts through the oppressive silence, as if a desperate defense had just been made. The entire landscape is now bathed in an eerie, blood-red haze. The very air thick with the aftermath of battle, as ominous crimson clouds churn above, their oppressive weight pressing down on the ravaged land. In the distance, a lone figure stands silhouetted against the toxic sky, while the air around them continues to choke with residual magic. Winky, overwhelmed by the suffocating atmosphere, struggles violently, her small frame racked with desperate coughs. Her breath comes in ragged gasps, her eyes squeezed shut as she weakly calls out a name. Still struggling against the oppressive atmosphere, Winky weakly calls out for Davy, who immediately pulls her into a comforting embrace, reassuring her that everything will be all right. He gently tells her it is nothing, though his own gaze hardens, his eyes glowing faintly crimson with a silent resolve. He continues to pat her head, urging Winley to get some rest. And she begins to relax, a small smile gracing her lips as he promises she will feel fine after a good nap. Carrying her gently in his arms, he moves through the lingering red haze of the battlefield. His expression remains grim, and later, he playfully rouses her from her sleep, patting her head once more. His hand begins to glow with a golden aura, ready to conjure something, as he offers to cook for her if she does not move right now. He flinches, a sharp sound escaping him as he's startled awake. Realizing she's now fully conscious, he doesn't hesitate, pulling her up by the hand, a sense of responsibility settling over him. As he'd previously considered, he possesses 3 distinct powers. Beyond that, he also commands a vast streak of mana. The devil mana, though psychotic, is the most efficient among them, and he intends to master it. Despite her cheeky nature, she reluctantly complies with his strong will. Finally, there is holy power, the purest of them all, now radiating from his palm. He extends his hand, commanding her to rise immediately. She looks up, explaining that even her own holy power won't work without his permission. A sense of relief washes over him as he realizes he is still alive, even as he continues to fall through an ethereal space. Suddenly, a system message flashes, highlighting a powerful holy power, as another figure, Winky, appears to be falling alongside him. Another message appears, proclaiming the blessing of luxury, focusing on the green-haired fairy. A blinding red flash then erupts, filling the entire space with intense light. Before slowly subsiding, Winky lets out a soft sigh, her gaze fixed on him, and a quiet thought escapes her lips. And you would be the one for me. Her internal monologue shifts, revealing a deeper concern about her own abilities, as she laments, my holy power is still weak. I need to find a way to increase it. She reflects on her current limitations, visualizing a past or potential ritual, and acknowledges, I can only wield Tier 4 holy magic as of now. A grim realization settles upon her, concluding that her current strength is insufficient. It's not enough to save the others in the arena. Plus, I have no reason to do so. As the red energy swirled around them, Davy took a decisive leap, thinking he was fortunate to have acted sooner. Below, a monstrous figure materialized with a hiss, its form coalescing from the crimson haze, ready to strike. Davy met its gaze with a low growl, a grim satisfaction settling over him as he realized no one else was watching. His eyes flared with a crimson glow, a silent promise that this encounter would be swift and effortless. With a powerful kick, he connected with the creature, the impact echoing with a sharp, metallic clang. Winky, caught in the same descent, watched him with wide eyes, a soft swoosh of air accompanying her surprise. Her expression shifted to one of pure astonishment, a silent gasp escaping her as she processed the display of strength. A soft chuckle escapes him, a wry acknowledgement of the serious situation at hand, as he considers the resilience of those who still cling to their pride, even in the face of overwhelming odds. His gaze then falls upon a figure, a knight in gleaming armor, who is introduced as Elena de Fallen, her expression a mix of confusion and quiet strength. He observes her, noting that this isn't the full story, that she doesn't even possess her memories, a beautiful yet tragic reality that perhaps fuels their extraordinary capabilities. Elena herself seems lost in thought, a question mark hanging over her head, her brow furrowed in silent contemplation. A sudden realization seems to strike her, her eyes widening in surprise. Davy, exasperated by her apparent daze, lets out a frustrated groan, demanding to know if she can truly pull herself together. Despite the danger, Elena's expression hardens with resolve, acknowledging that the threat remains unchanged. If you're going to be like this, it's not my fault, Davy declares, holding Elena's arm, while she, startled, can only manage a confused sound. Just wait a moment, he insists, his hand reaching out. She stares back, a flicker of anger in her eyes, demanding to know how he could be so calm. Davy pulls her along, a silent ellipsis hanging in the air between them as she resists. Ah, so that's it, he muses, realizing she hadn't grasped the gravity of their situation as he had hoped. I mean, I guess for a prince who was in a coma just a few months ago, he continues, his voice laced with exasperation. It's so obvious that I'm totally marked by the situation, he gestures, throwing his hands up in a rhetorical question, who knows? Elena looks down, then lifts her gaze with renewed resolve, declaring herself his sword and urging him not to worry. Anyways, step aside, Davy commands, placing a hand on her shoulder as they move forward together. As the conversation continues, Elena's frustration becomes clear, insisting that this isn't a problem he can simply solve. Davy considers her words, thinking to himself how short the time is, before challenging her to solve it herself. Her anger flaring, Elena retorts that it's not something he can quickly resolve like his performance at the banquet. She continues, her voice laced with disdain, referring to the nobles of the night. Meanwhile, an ancient tome lies open, revealing lore about blood-related beings, left behind as remnants in an ancient tomb. A goblet of crimson liquid appears, as the narration suggests that even he must have heard of vampires before. Davy listens intently, his expression serious as he acknowledges that a mere fluke won't work against such a threat. Taking a protective stance before him, Elena draws her sword, urgently commanding him to run away immediately. From the shadows, a figure with glowing red eyes emerges, muttering that he doesn't believe Davy will be allowed to escape so easily, and vows to do his best to stop him. He lets out a soft sigh, reflecting on the unwavering reliability of his companion. Meanwhile, Elena stands ready, her sword gleaming, a fierce determination radiating from her as she prepares for whatever comes next. Yet, unlike the day before, this sense of resolve feels far more profound, as if she had encountered her destiny from another life, a destiny now intertwined with the return of a max-level hero. A single drop of water falls, sending ripples across a dark, reflective surface. The scene shifts to a grand, opulent hall, rain streaking down vast windows, as if entering a new domain. Within this lavish setting, a foot clad in a flowing dress steps forward, its movement accompanied by a soft scrape and a faint splash. In a dimly lit chamber, a cloaked figure stands, their back to the viewer, a soft, questioning voice breaking the silence. Suddenly, the scene shifts to a woman with flowing orange-brown hair, her eyes glowing a fierce, ominous red, a dark aura radiating from her as a sharp, metallic clang echoes. A small, white dress and a worn teddy bear lie abandoned on the ground, a soft thud marking their stillness. Crimson liquid drips slowly, steadily, splashing into a growing pool below. Each drop echoes with a soft, hollow sound. The woman with the glowing eyes looks down, her expression heavy with a memory she cannot escape, a silent vow that she hasn't forgotten a single moment since that day. The scene shifts again, to a desolate, blood-red landscape where the cloaked figure now stands, facing a towering, monstrous entity, its form radiating raw power and a grinding, guttural sound. A close-up reveals the creature's terrifying visage, its eyes burning with malevolent red light, as the chilling realization dawns. Vampire. With a menacing snarl, the monstrous vampire extends a clawed hand, vowing to eradicate its enemies all the way to their roots. A figure stands poised on a glowing red platform, her long orange hair flowing behind her, ready to act until the very moment her life ends. Her eyes blaze with an intense, golden light. But a sudden interruption causes her to recoil, a surprised gasp escaping her lips. The name Kayak echoes in the air, followed by a soft thud. Now on her knees, Kayak trembles, utterly bewildered by the turn of events, wondering aloud, What is this?" As red particles swirl around them, she confronts Davy Orwain, expressing her frustration. "I don't know why you're so obsessed with vampires, but..." He looks at her, a hint of annoyance in his gaze, and dismisses her concerns, stating, "Don't get in the way of my work." He then adds, almost to himself, "What do you mean? I wonder." Before she can react, he swiftly moves behind her, grabbing her firmly as he commands, "Just get still and watch." His hand clenches into a tight fist, a silent declaration of intent. A moment of calm before the storm, he muses, "It's been a while. The moment you're caught in the same trap once, twice, 3 times, you're finished." Facing a towering, shadowy figure, he asserts, "If it's a vampire, there is no one in this world who can become better than me. Except for living people anyway." The monstrous vampire, its eyes glowing crimson, snarls back, "An infected, strengthened blood fool won't be a problem." But before the creature can act, his hand shoots out, firmly grasping Kayak's wrist, holding her in place. Then, with a sudden, explosive movement, he delivers a devastating punch directly to the vampire's face. A smirk plays on his lips as he taunts, "Seems like you didn't learn your lesson from me yesterday." The vampire recoils, a guttural scream tearing from its throat, its face contorted in agony. As he clenches his fist once more, a dark, ominous aura of purple and red energy erupts around his hand, crackling with raw power. Davy Orwain's fist connects with a sickening crunch, a burst of vibrant pink and purple energy erupting from the impact point. The vampire, its eyes glowing crimson, snarls defiantly, daring him to die by its attribute. But Davy's power is absolute, triggering a horrifying effect known as perforation, blood vessel combustion, as the vampire screams in agony, its body racked by the internal assault. Another powerful impact sends the creature reeling, a blinding flash of red and white energy marking its trajectory. Davy presses his advantage, delivering a flurry of blows, each strike resonating with explosive force. The vampire, battered and broken, can only utter a single word in disbelief, "Impossible." With a final, resounding blow, the creature is sent hurtling through the air, leaving a trail of dust and debris in its wake. The lingering energy of the confrontation shimmers, a testament to the raw power unleashed. Davy Orwain and his small companion plummet through the air, a vibrant red energy swirling around them as an unseen force declares the return of the max-level hero. Nearby, Elena looks on with a worried expression. Another man stares upward, questioning the bizarre sight before him. Now standing amidst a crimson glow, Davy gazes up at a colossal, dark figure looming in the distance. The man's eyes widen in shock. Meanwhile, the small white creature at his side begins to pulse with an intense red aura, growing in power. As the creature settles onto his shoulder, Davy considers the impossible, noting that his new status window appears different from what he remembers. Elena recoils, startled, demanding that whatever is happening keep its distance. Davy stands, a faint shimmer of light surrounding him. He extends a hand down to Elena, offering assistance and urging her to take it. Yet, her hand remains empty, unable to grasp his. She looks up, a soft exclamation escaping her lips as she struggles to reach him. A quiet thud marks her failure, and she casts her gaze downward, a wave of distress washing over her. Davy's hand reaches out again, but Elena's hand pulls back, a subtle swoosh of air accompanying her retreat. He then asks her, "Let me borrow your blade?" Both stand, a shared moment of confusion hanging between them, marked by silent question marks. Elena, flustered and blushing, attempts to explain the situation. The blade, a relic of countless battles, lay before them. But her reaction was one of utter disbelief, a sharp refusal escaping her lips. Davy, however, clarified his intent, his fist clenching with resolve. Her shock deepened as he smirked, the audacity of his request leaving her speechless. In his outstretched palm, a miniature version of the legendary weapon shimmered, a perfect replica of the god's sword. He then formally requested to borrow the divine blade. Centuries ago, a heroic blacksmith dedicated his entire life to forging a sword capable of saving the world, along with countless other weapons. His powerful silhouette was framed by glowing, fiery chains as he tirelessly hammered away. In the hands of this blessed individual, common ores transformed into precious swords, and mere junk became unprecedented treasures, as he, the one touched by divine grace, could forge blades imbued with pure mana. His masterpieces were revered across the continent as national treasures, yet out of all the creations of his life, the blacksmith Surtur named only one of them. In the ancient elven tongue, these weapons crafted by Surtur were known as god swords, each unique with its own name, but the most famous among them was forged as a gift to his friend, the sword god Yaris, by burning Surtur's very life force. It was a sword capable of piercing through the heavens on its own. Davy considers the tale, acknowledging that it sounds like the sword he means, yet he expresses doubt, wondering aloud, "But I'm not sure how true it is. A story about a sword with a will of its own, is it not?" His gaze sharpens as he then asks, "Do you want to know how it is?" Davy recoils from an unseen force, a sharp protest escaping him as he feels a grip. The suddenness of it makes his head ring, just as he had heard it would, finding the action quite rude. His eyes flash crimson, a crackle of energy surrounding him as he asserts, "I'm not deaf." With a surge of power, his fist clenches, glowing faintly. And in the next instant, he has the small fairy-like being, Winky, by the head. She struggles, demanding to know if he possesses a sword with its own will. His gaze remains intense, his hand still extended, commanding her to return. A soft thud sounds as she goes limp in his arms, and he looks down at her, a note of concern entering his voice as he warns that she will die if they continue like this. A pained cry escapes her as the god sword's immense power overwhelms her, for only a true genius could hope to wield it. Kneeling beside her, he observes the princess's excellent talent, yet notes her underdeveloped growth, understanding that knowing one's limits is just as crucial as raw ability. A smirk plays on his lips as he internally warns himself, "Don't even think about doing anything so bold. I won't." Then, with a sudden surge of golden light, he extends his hand, unleashing a powerful burst of energy. His eyes glow with an intense crimson hue, as the golden energy crackles around him. He grasps the god's sword, which immediately ignites with a brilliant golden glow. The blade swirls with both his golden power and the lingering red energies, a tempest of magic contained within its form. Its edge glows with concentrated might. As he stands tall, holding the fully activated god's sword aloft, golden particles shimmering around him. Gripping the hilt of the god's sword, he observes its faint glow, a knowing expression on his face. A soft hum emanates from the blade, and he acknowledges its recognition, a subtle power surging through him. With a quiet command, he silences the sword's eager murmur, asserting his will over its ancient power. The god sword begins to glow with an intense golden light, as he demands its full strength, ready to unleash its true potential. Golden energy radiates from his form, enveloping the blade as he moves with fluid grace, channeling his power into the legendary weapon. With the sword now fully alight, he confidently declares his intent to resolve the situation. From nearby, a voice filled with disbelief and awe questions the identity of the one wielding such immense power. A blinding flash of golden light erupts. The legendary weapon is now fully enveloped in a colossal, shimmering golden aura, its power resonating throughout the space. A blinding flash erupts as a great holy magic lightning strike tears through the air, its immense power resonating through the grand hall with a thunderous crash. Outside, lightning crackles across a dark, stormy sky, briefly illuminating the silhouette of a figure on horseback. Davy stands ready, his voice cutting through the aftermath as he challenges, "How long are you going to stay hidden?" He looks up, observing a small, red, bat-like creature in the distance, commanding it to finally reveal itself. With a series of sharp crackles, a shimmering blue barrier begins to fracture and break apart. Blue energy crackles around Davy as he watches the barrier crumble, anticipating a vampire, but finding something else entirely. A shadowy, bat-like creature with glowing red eyes and a crackling purple aura emerges, prompting him to remark on its surprisingly low rank. The creature's purple aura intensifies, crackling ominously around its form. As the magical barrier shatters, the shadowy figure begins to coalesce, its form taking on a more defined, bat-like shape. With a soft rustle of unseen wings, a cascade of vibrant purple hair frames a face with piercing, glowing red eyes. The creature, now fully revealed, looks directly ahead, a question echoing in the sudden silence. Are we acquainted? Then, with an unexpected shift in tone, it adds, Ms. Maid. A figure with flowing purple hair and bat-like wings descends, lamenting that she was always expected to be the one to die, yet now someone else has killed her. Below, a young man with dark brown hair, sword in hand, looks up with a confident smirk, musing to himself that he must be quite the important person. The winged woman, Ms. Maid, commands him to come down, declaring that the sight of him is staining her eyes. As she descends closer, Davy Orwain, unfazed, remarks on her revealing attire, pointing out that her dress allows him to see her underwear. Her red eyes narrow in fury, her expression a clear testament to his irritating personality. The young man simply offers a smug, knowing look, ready for whatever comes next. With a sharp, metallic screech, a clawed wing lashes out. The force of the blow sends Davy Orwain flying backward, a blur of motion across the ground. The impact of the previous strike still reverberates, a green shockwave rippling through the air. Another wave of purple energy follows, as a voice demands he come down immediately. From above, the maid's eyes glow with an ominous red light, her form wreathed in a dark, swirling aura. She declares her intention to become the next emperor, her voice laced with a deep-seated resentment for the one who died, a memory she vows never to forget. Her anger intensifies as she condemns him for speaking ill of the deceased, unaware of the depth of her fury. Despite being knocked to the ground, Davy Orwain looks up, a wry smile playing on his lips as he considers how to respond to her intelligence. His words only fuel her rage, her eyes flaring brighter as she seethes at his casual disrespect for her circumstances. With a furious surge of power, she unleashes a concentrated blast of crimson energy from her palm. A searing crimson energy blast erupts from Ms. Maid, tearing through the air with a violent crackle. Its destructive force surging forward as it closes the distance to its target. The attack connects with a thunderous impact, sending shockwaves and debris scattering across the landscape. Davy Orwain is thrown violently backward by the force, his body skidding across the ground before he lands with a solid thud atop a crumbling stone pillar. A smirk plays on Ms. Maid's lips as she observes his resilience, muttering that he's been riled up quite nicely. Her own crimson aura flares in response, sparkling with intensified power. But from the pillar, Davy Orwain begins to glow, a brilliant light emanating from his form as he gathers his own strength. He stands poised, radiating an intense white-gold aura, a beacon of resolve against the encroaching darkness. With a powerful surge, he launches himself forward from the pillar, a blur of motion charging directly towards his opponent. Davy Orwain surges forward, a crimson aura trailing behind him, as he unleashes a swift, arcing sword strike. The blade connects with a sharp clang, sending sparks flying, and he continues his relentless assault, pushing off a curved wall with incredible speed. His grip tightens on the hilt of his weapon, a surge of power erupting from him, focusing into the tip of his sword. As he charges with unwavering resolve, a dismissive sound escapes him, as Ms. Maid, perched high on a stone pillar, looks down with an air of superiority, stating, "This may be beyond your comprehension, but ultimately, you are merely human." Davy, undeterred, challenges her with a question of his own. "Aren't you merely a servant of a human?" With a sharp sound, Ms. Maid descends from her perch, her form wreathed in a crimson aura. A thought flashes through his mind. Vampire Lord? Ms. Maid then begins to elaborate on the true nature of these beings, explaining, they are strong, absurdly strong. Among the strongest beings, even surpassing their own creation. Their most unique ability is to inherit the powers and memories of the Vampire Lord. She gestures with a pointed finger, continuing, "A lord. They cannot be easily defeated unless one possesses a holy weapon or the power of the High Elves." Davy processes this information, realizing, so that's why you can't defeat them. Ms. Maid looks down, a slight smirk playing on her lips as she concludes, "No matter how many times they fall, they return. It's cool, mysterious, powerful. This is very important. The Vampire Lord has a strong sense of self-preservation. Where they are to be." Ms. Maid continues her explanation, recalling the sword god's words about the singular importance of victory, a sentiment she finds quite appealing. She adds that the Vampire Lord's self-preservation instincts are remarkably strong, leaving Davy to wonder what would happen if their true nature were ever fully exposed. As if to illustrate her point, a golden burst of energy erupts, signaling the start of a fierce, ancient battle. The sword god, a blur of green, attacks with a powerful sword strike, forcing the red-clad vampire count to defend with a desperate, shimmering shield. He presses his advantage, his foot landing with crushing force. A relentless flurry of slashes follows, pushing the vampire count back with overwhelming speed and precision. Finally, the sword god unleashes a decisive, explosive strike, shattering the vampire count's remaining defenses in a brilliant flash of light. Standing victorious, the sword god holds his blade pointed down over the defeated vampire count, who lies broken on the ground. Back in the present, Davy, now holding a formidable axe, identifies their current foe with a grim realization. it's a vampire count. Ms. Maid observes the young one, considering her potential, and remarks that if left unchecked, she might one day ascend to the status of a lord. Meanwhile, Davy, resolute, declares that they should deal with the situation immediately, prompting a question of whether such a feat is even possible. He challenges the doubt with a smirk, asking if they truly believe it to be impossible. In a flash of memory, the sword god unleashes a powerful, sweeping sword attack. Red energy slashes tearing through the air with a resounding impact. Ms. Maid, in the present, expresses her exasperation, while in the past, a blonde woman laments that even with the sword god's blessing, the chosen child is still just that, a child. The blonde woman continues, emphasizing that despite the blessing, the young one remains vulnerable, as the sword god looks up at Elena falling through the air, her descent ending with a soft thud. A blinding explosion of white and red energy erupts, filling the space with a deafening roar. Back in the present, Ms. Maid's expression twists into a furious snarl, a crimson aura flaring around her as she reacts to the unfolding events. In the flashback, the sword god dashes forward with incredible speed, his blade drawn and leaving trails of red energy in his wake. Ms. Maid watches the unfolding events, a dismissive thought escaping her lips. Red energy ribbons swirl around her as she considers the implications, her mind questioning the very nature of the sword god's techniques. But as the vision intensifies, a flicker of surprise crosses her face, realizing she might have misunderstood something crucial. Meanwhile, the sword god, with a knowing smile, begins to reveal the true essence of his craft, explaining that what she perceives as his techniques are merely the surface. He demonstrates a routine of swinging his blade thousands of times, a relentless, almost meditative practice that transcends mere training. His grip on the sword hilt tightens, the weapon glowing with stored power, as he dismisses any notion of cute or simple techniques, unleashing the formidable Great Claymore. With a single, earth-shattering strike, the sword god executes the Grand Mountain Splitter, a technique capable of cleaving mountains in two. With a guttural cry, he unleashes a blinding golden energy, which instantly fractures the very earth beneath it, erupting into a colossal beam of light and force, shattering the landscape into countless flying shards, as the sheer power tears through the terrain, leaving only devastation in its wake. A soft glow emanates from the ethereal forest, as Davy observes the strange, shimmering trees. Elena, standing nearby, remarks that this must be the reason people use magic, a sentiment Davy dismisses, having no interest in such things. He recalls a time when he was told to be quiet, a memory that still brings a smirk to his face. Davy lunges forward, a surge of power emanating from his hand, declaring that he only pursues absolute strength, and wonders if Elena is the same. Elena reaches out, her expression thoughtful, acknowledging that she always felt something was missing, and suggests they just carry on. Davy looks surprised by her words, wondering what she means. He continues his powerful movement, a purple aura trailing behind him, as Elena reveals that she believes in his original master's teachings. The focus shifts to a pulsating, glowing red crystal, its energy swirling with an ominous hum. Davy reflects on a place known as Bloodpolis, imagining its chaotic nature, a city where any human entering is destined to become a monster, or more accurately, to be devoured, with those infected growing stronger through prolonged exposure. He finds it insane that people there still preach amidst the chaos, attributing their survival to the Holy Sword and Holy Knights. Even though he senses something is fundamentally wrong with the idea of them being masters, he acknowledges his own need for divine power to break through an aura, asserting that his strength isn't built from low-rank divinity like theirs. True enlightenment and profoundness, he muses, come from obtaining a certain level. And it was precisely this understanding that allowed Davy to achieve his current power, a realization that suddenly shifts his focus to a glowing, ornate sword. Still contemplating the nature of the holy sword, Davy hears a voice declare, "It's a total monster," though another quickly interjects, "But it's..." The first voice continues, asserting that there's never been a holy sword that could use all 5 types of mana, and that the human mana present is distinctly different from what they perceive. Davy, however, questions the validity of this statement, wondering if it's even true, as the voice dismisses him as crazy. The voice then warns him not to denounce the results of hundreds of years of research like that. A sudden surge of energy emanates from the glowing sword, its light intensifying with a shimmering sound. Davy, seemingly addressing the sword or the entity within, declares, "Enough with the chatter." He then adds, "Since we're here, I'll leave it to you to finish it off." The sword, or the voice, questions his meaning, asking, "What does that mean?" As Davy explains, "Since I won't be able to use my own strength." Davy clarifies his intent, stating, "I'm saying I'll finish it," as a faint, dark aura crackles around him. He reflects on his own motivations, admitting that he had no thoughts of sacrificing himself for others, but if it helps him grow stronger, then he might as well get paid for it. Deciding to test the sword's capabilities, Davy clasps his hands together, a soft glow emanating from them. He senses the immense power of a god from its previous owner, yet something about it feels incomplete, almost different. The sword's voice warns him that his mana is unlike the pure energy it usually wields, suggesting it might not be effective against evil spirits, but he dismisses the concern, preferring its unique nature. The sword flares with an intense, almost overwhelming energy, causing him to question its true nature. The ornate blade stands tall, radiating a soft, ethereal light. He confidently recalls his past success against demons, asserting that the sword of God is capable of anything. A sly grin plays on his lips as he realizes the sword's supposed limitation against evil spirits could actually be an advantage, allowing him to use it freely without concern for harming innocent individuals. With a decisive shrug, he declares his intention to wield the sword as he pleases, regardless of any inherent restrictions or permissions. The sword pulses with light, as if reacting to his defiant declaration, mocking the very idea of divine intervention. He continues to ponder the holy sword, acknowledging its purpose to protect and its supposed inability to harm good people. Dismissing these limitations as old news, he decides to simply wield it against those he deems wicked. For in ancient times, holy magic, born of pure faith and devotion, was meant to empower only those with the greatest holy strength. With a determined expression, Davy declares that the divine favors the audacious. As he reaches for the weapon, a sudden, intense crackle of energy erupts from the sword, the blade beginning to glow with an overwhelming light as it splits and reforms. A powerful golden aura bursts forth, causing the sword to crack and radiate immense pressure, making him question if it's trying to destroy him with its newly revealed 7th-rank power. Despite the overwhelming force, he reassures the weapon, promising it will not perish. The sword fully transforms into a brilliant golden blade, its power now completely unleashed, leaving Davy kneeling, overwhelmed but resolute. As the holy sword continued its dramatic transformation, a blinding flash of white and red light erupted, accompanied by the roar of immense power and the hiss of raw energy. The light expanded rapidly, spreading outwards in a vast, ethereal wave that seemed to consume everything in its path. Overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the force, Davy gasped, struggling to maintain his composure amidst the surging power. A pained grunt escaped him, his face contorted with the immense effort required to control the newly unleashed power. Then, with a sound like shattering glass and a thunderous impact, a colossal golden burst erupted, radiating outwards with blinding intensity. The golden light surged across the landscape, bathing the distant city in its ethereal glow, a silent testament to the power now unleashed. Reaching out his hand, Davy found it now shimmering with the same golden energy, a direct conduit to the sword's immense power. As he looked up, golden, ethereal wings of light unfurled from his back, signifying a profound connection and a new level of mastery over the weapon's formidable strength. He feels the lingering aftershocks of the holy sword's immense power, a golden light still radiating from his form. The energy ripples across the vast arena, a powerful surge that echoes through the very air. A pained grunt escapes him, the sheer force of the explosion leaving a sharp, stinging sensation. He looks down at the scorched earth, wondering what exactly just happened, the impact feeling like a searing brand. Addressing the weapon, he asks if the godly sword is still functioning after such an outburst. A playful complaint follows, finding the sword's antics quite annoying. A slight smile plays on his lips, acknowledging the situation with a casual, "Oh, no," as the sword remains embedded in the ground, still crackling with energy. From a hidden vantage point, a crimson eye watches intently, a faint crackling sound accompanying its gaze. A hand reaches out, glowing with a sinister red light, as the observer dismisses the scene with a mocking laugh, calling him a crazy person, while a detailed profile of Elena, the spirit of the fallen hero, is revealed. Still reeling from the sword's immense power, Davy looks up at the glowing blade, a playful complaint escaping him as he addresses the sentient weapon, Freya, asking if its chaotic energy isn't a bit much. Meanwhile, the ethereal form of Elena, the spirit of the fallen hero, observes with glowing blue eyes, her presence a silent, watchful mystery. Elena ponders the last time she was able to sleep without a single worry for such a long stretch, realizing that peace was only possible because of her brother. Meanwhile, a maid bows deeply before Davy, murmuring a soft, "Sorry, Your Highness," as the prince on a whim. Suddenly, Elena's eyes snap open, and a desperate cry tears from her throat. "Brother!" The scene shifts to an ornate lodging within the Phyllis dukedom, where a voice asks how he feels. Davy slowly opens his eyes, his mind hazy as he wonders, "How long was I asleep?" A worried maid stands by his bedside, her voice trembling as she confesses, "I am so worried that you might disappear again." Elena looks at Davy, a hint of worry in her eyes, remarking that his peaceful sleep was not for nothing, and that she had a dream that day. A dream, she muses, where she was enveloped by a crimson mist, and he was the one who saved her. Turning to him, she asks directly if he truly saved her from that red mist. As Davy lies in bed, Elena continues, mentioning a mark they discovered while checking his body, and the maid stands by, observing. A strange, intricate symbol glows faintly on his back, a silent testament to the maid's words. Elena stares at the mark, her voice laced with concern as she asks if it is a stigma. The maid, her expression solemn, confirms that this has happened in the past, a recurring mystery surrounding the young man. She continues, explaining that the one who discovered it was the crown prince, who truly fell because of it. Not only was the pervasive red mist completely purified, but Devi had been at the very center of a place where holy power was concentrated, all while bearing the mysterious stigma on his back. He swallows, realizing the implications, and admits that he seems to only cause trouble for others. Unlike devout priests, a stigma like his essentially marks one as a devil with a system that cannot be fought. The maid, looking downcast, confesses that even she isn't entirely sure what the stigma is, but she knows it's something significant, leaving her to wonder what they should do next. Davy reflects that he still hasn't fully understood the stigma's true strengths, but it's clear it won't remain hidden forever. The Crown Prince's fall and the widespread impact on many people due to this stigma serve as a stark warning. This incident, he knows, will undoubtedly lead to many complications. He apologizes, explaining that he lost consciousness during the event, so he doesn't truly know what happened. The maid simply acknowledges his words, while Elena finds his explanation perfectly logical. The maid then asks how he feels, inquiring if he's experiencing any pain, to which he replies, "As you can see." He looks at his hand, a faint glow emanating from it, and admits that the problem is he feels completely fine, not even a hint of tiredness. He then corrects himself, asking if he should say he's good, as the magic power consumed during the red mist incident was not only replenished, but he was also able to increase his devil power, a strength that far exceeded his initial hopes. His mana capacity had greatly increased, a vibrant pink and purple energy swirling around his hand, surrounded by a powerful blue aura. This surge in power directly affected his holy and dark mana, allowing both to grow stronger than ever before. Of his three energies, the holy power had received the most significant boost, leading him to wonder if this was truly the might of a stigma. He mused on the idea of gaining strength through such intense experiences, cursing the very holy powers that had brought him to this point. His maid, sitting beside him, reminded him of the trouble he had caused, especially for her, his personal attendant. With a faint red glow in his eyes, he acknowledged her concern, admitting that he was beginning to remember the events more clearly. She continued, explaining that not only had he caused trouble, but Princess Elena herself had come for him, claiming there was a proper treatment for his stigma and attempting to take him away. Davy agreed that the situation had been dire, especially when she added that he would have been executed if he hadn't gone with her, making him grateful to still be alive. Meanwhile, a voice from an unseen location reassured someone not to worry about Harris. He was fully healed, and the tournament that caused so much trouble had finally concluded. Meanwhile, in his chambers, Davy considers a compromise, thinking he will take his time but ensure no harm comes to his brother. Elsewhere, Elena muses, wondering if that is truly the extent of the situation. Later, reviewing his own status, which lists him as Barian, with a level of 100, no title, human race, no class or abilities, but a bad stigma and normal condition, Davy wonders if his stigma is the reason for this unusual status and why it even exists. Holding a glowing blue crystal, he ponders if it was a result of that prayer, or perhaps because he used mana while in his astral body. He resolves that others can pretend to put up a fight, but he will ensure they don't even get to touch the grace of the gods. Suddenly, a sharp sound makes him gasp in surprise, his eyes widening as he looks down. A distinct click echoes through the room, leaving him utterly shocked. He stares intently at the source of the sudden sound, a faint glow now visible before him. What is this? He wonders, his mind racing to confirm his perception, deciding to proceed with caution. Looking up, he hears a voice calling out, then another, as a hand descends from above, beckoning him closer. A figure with flowing purple hair and piercing red eyes materializes amidst a flurry of glowing butterflies, offering assistance. If this truly is the grace of the gods, she muses, then she will play along with their game. A grand, ornate archway shimmers into view, bathed in an otherworldly light. Later, sitting with Elena, Davy holds the small, glowing object, asking what he should do with it, wondering if she would trust him with his intentions. Elena, confused, asks for clarification. He ponders the mysterious figure, noting the distinctive bracelet on her head and the slanted red pupils in her eyes, concluding that she must be a demon, perhaps undergoing some form of transformation. He then tells Elena that the figure is likely one of those who claim to possess God's grace, confirming her own unspoken thoughts. Still discussing the nature of their enemies, Elena explains the difference between a demon and a devil, noting that a demon is a creature corrupted by a devil's mana. Davy agrees, adding that some demons can transcend this corruption to become devils themselves, prompting Elena to wonder what happens if one succeeds in such a transformation. He confirms that such a being would indeed become a devil. A historical account begins, revealing the name of a powerful figure, Perselk, who was once human. The lore continues, describing a brutal past where a father, with his own swordsmanship, was forced to sever his daughter's head, as if it were a necessary act. This sacrifice allowed him to die of old age on the battlefield, all in an effort to end a devastating war, a conflict that involved the demon king of the Western lands. The mysterious Ms. Maid appears, her true identity now revealed as Perselk von Ferron. Her red eye glows with an intense light, as Davy's thoughts echo the revelation. The demon king, Purcell. Looking surprised, Davy hears her voice, acknowledging his knowledge of her, leaving him speechless. Standing poised, Purcell listens as Davy's voice confirms his unwavering intuition, knowing his eyes had never deceived him. Lost in thought, Davy sits quietly on the couch, his mind replaying the recent, shocking revelation. A soft, ethereal voice echoes through the void, asking a profound question. What if he were merely a vessel? Davy, looking up from his bed, responds with a hint of disbelief, wondering if this is some kind of game. The voice continues, revealing a deeper connection, insisting that this isn't their first encounter. Lying in his bed, Davy processes the unsettling information. A demonic creature, a vessel. The words echo in his mind. The voice elaborates, explaining that the vessel has already been created, a place where a demon will be placed, its unusual size a testament to its purpose. Davy can only scoff at the absurdity, finding it unbelievable that a spirit would attempt to seal a demon king. Elsewhere, a sinister figure with horns and bat-like wings echoes the same chilling question, asking what if he were merely a vessel, confirming that he is indeed the vessel. The demonic figure continues, a hint of disdain in her voice, revealing that the villain accepted this fate, a truly shameful act. Still reeling from the revelation, he lets out a soft tch, a scoff escaping him as the conversation loses his interest, finding the entire situation rather pathetic. From her imposing seat, Ms. Maid addresses him directly, her voice cutting through his thoughts, demanding to know what a demon king, sealed by a holy sword, could possibly want with her. She insists on a straightforward discussion, with no room for evasive language. Davy, finding her quite twisted, decides to humor her, proposing they discuss the fact that his body is a vessel for a demon king, before offering a proper introduction. Ms. Maid's expression shifts to disbelief, convinced he has no idea what he's talking about. The idea of a demon king being a vessel is absurd to her, especially since her enemy was the one who took her revel to the demon king's side. It is this very enemy, she muses, who is responsible for her current predicament. The main cause of her ire, the demon king of the western continent, Purcell, whose ancient history now stands before her in a terrifying, imposing form. This was all the information passed down to her, the truth that the demon king is already sealed within a sword, a fact she once couldn't believe, but now knows to be true. Ms. Maid then turns her gaze back to Davy, questioning his understanding, wondering if this is truly the demon king, as he feels terribly different from the one she knows. Judging by her reaction, Davy knew his words had struck true, but Ms. Maid, indignant, accused him of being petty and condescending. She scoffed at the notion, insisting that Caldrus's personality wasn't so rotten that he would back himself into a corner. Yet, she conceded, he was indeed at the end of his rope, having been cornered by her for years, prompting Davy to suggest they could simply find another demon king. Davy pressed for clarity, and she explained the myth. To regain his power, the demon king would have to be reborn. He then challenged her, asking if she had a more precise reason for her uncertainty. Admitting her lack of knowledge, she confessed she wouldn't feel so uncertain if she knew, leading Davy to conclude she was merely guessing at Caldrus's desperation and lack of options, questioning her preparedness for this very day. She confirmed her preparations, but then revealed a crucial detail. The person who took the revel to the demon king's side was none other than Elena. Davy affirmed this, adding that Caldrus would indeed speak about the revel to others. A look of dawning realization crossed her face as she finally understood the implications of his words. Ms. Maid dismisses the demon king's demise as a good thing, but Davy challenges her, questioning the point of discussing such a figure. She quickly corrects him, stating that she was not the one who sacrificed people, leaving him momentarily stunned. Ms. Maid clarifies that her only sacrifice was the demon king himself, yet Davy retorts that she sacrificed people for her own beliefs, a statement that seems to catch her off guard. He reiterates his conviction that she was the one who sacrificed people for her own thoughts, his gaze unwavering. Davy then expresses his disbelief that a will of a higher being would involve Elena, whom he describes as a half-crazy person who merely looks up to a serious older brother, the cosmic background swirling around them. Ms. Maid, however, insists that he doesn't truly understand the demon king, and that the situation is far more complex than a simple half-kill. Davy challenges her, asking how she could possibly know his level of understanding, before revealing that he regained his memories after his last near-death experience, now fully aware of her true nature. His eyes glow with a subtle power as he clarifies that he is referring to her own inherent strength, not just her knowledge. This power is akin to the abilities he himself wielded in a past life, suggesting he may yet gain even more skills. Ms. Maid considers the implications of Davy's words, a slight smile playing on her lips as she asks if this is a good deal, before deciding to close it. Unbeknownst to her, the contract binding Purcell was nearing its end, an unexpected termination. Meanwhile, Davy, still processing the conversation, wonders if he even has a choice in the matter, the answer seeming obvious to him. Turning to him, Ms. Maid declares her intention to try things her own way, alone. She reflects on having unintentionally gained someone with whom to share her secrets. A few days later, in the heart of the Continental Empire, the Grand Duke, once hailed as the strongest swordsman, had become a mere puppet, manipulated by the Crown Prince's faction, a scheme Davy had orchestrated from the shadows. A grand cathedral stands tall amidst the city. Davy resolves to find a way to grow stronger, knowing he cannot afford to remain weak, for being a puppet is simply not his style. He ponders the nature of power, questioning if it is truly wrong to desire strength. Meanwhile, Ms. Maid offers a different perspective, suggesting that such strength is often seen as tangible proof of divine favor. Davy, however, dismisses her words, warning her that such talk could bring trouble, before shifting his attention to a document in his hands, confirming it's the page he was instructed to examine. The text on the page speaks of Ephraim and Scene, individuals who defied norms and pursued only absolute strength. With a determined glint in his eye, he accepts his own path, declaring himself destined for trouble. Later, a man with green hair and glasses reacts with surprise to something Davy has said, exclaiming in disbelief. The green-haired man stammers, trying to understand what Davy is doing, who simply finds it tiresome to explain every detail. The man then clarifies, asking if Davy is referring to the holy ground. The green-haired man agrees with Davy's assessment, while Davy expresses his confusion as to why others stubbornly continue to approach them, despite the complications. Davy smiles, acknowledging that the location, though perhaps temporary, is indeed a holy ground. In fact, half of the entire city is considered holy ground, making the best plan to simply flee from the complex situation. It's time to make haste. Davy walks away from a grand, ornate room, a briefcase clutched in his hand. From behind him, a voice questions, "Will it really be all right for you to return like this?" The voice continues, assuring him that people will be delighted to welcome him back to his own country without a doubt, to which he simply replies, "That's fine." Then, with a slight turn of his head, he asks, "Who will act as the best agent?" Meanwhile, Elena sits elegantly, a teacup held delicately in her hand, her expression thoughtful. A voice prompts her, "J.E., aren't you going to say something?" before adding, "Just answer the question, lady." Elena's gaze hardens as she retorts, "You just ran away from them, right? Not only did he leave the mess behind, but even created an unforgivable rumor." She continues, her voice rising, "And ran away from your younger siblings, right?" A frantic voice attempts to interject, "What? We tried to send someone, they had already." Elena cuts off the interruption, her tone sharp. "In a critical situation, I really don't think you can afford to be so arrogant, Prince. And the reason why a stupid rumor spread to the outside is because you had already sworn." The other voice trails off, calling out, "Prince." Elena's frustration boils over, a single word escaping her lips with uncharacteristic force. Her outburst is met with a shocked, hushed reprimand from a nearby attendant, but the princess, her face contorted with anger, insists on the truth of her feelings. Her gaze drifts, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features as she wonders if he has truly departed. It was the first time anyone had witnessed the delicate and elegant Princess Elena de Fallon scream, revealing an unruly and aggressive side to the usually composed royal. With a decisive command, she orders the servants to prepare for immediate movement. Her urgency prompts a surprised query from an unseen individual, questioning the suddenness of her demand. A serene night falls over a grand estate, the moon and a faint pink celestial body, casting a soft glow over the tiled roof. Inside, in a quiet chamber, Elena sits on a bed, her gaze fixed on the green-haired man beside her. He offers her a gentle smile, remarking that some things look good as they are, while she quietly acknowledges his words. Elsewhere, Davy sits in contemplation, his hand resting thoughtfully on his chin, pondering a question of regret. A memory or thought of Ms. Maid flashes through his mind, a narration recalling how she was the only one truly interested in the god sword, the sole individual who pursued absolute strength. Davy continues his introspection, a faint smile playing on his lips as he considers the nature of a master, acknowledging it as a coveted title. He admits to himself that he won't be able to wield such tremendous holy powers until he regains his own strength. A brilliant, golden light erupts, swirling with ethereal energy, symbolizing the holy power he yearns to reclaim. But even with such power, he considers it not truly his, despite the tempting prospect of ownership. He muses that he and Elena wouldn't be a good match for such a weapon, acknowledging it's a sword that simply doesn't suit him. It's not about using a discarded sword, he clarifies, but rather that he simply doesn't possess the one he truly desires yet. For he already has a specific sword in mind, its image glowing like a crimson moon. An interesting way she phrased it, he thinks, wondering how much the maid truly knows. From a distant, ethereal space, Ms. Maid asserts that even she doesn't know everything. She doesn't need to look at him to understand, for there are things she cannot even perceive. He ponders her words about the Demon King of the Western continent, questioning if her statement is a threat or merely a warning. Ms. Maid's voice echoes, reminding him that once he was able to move, he didn't hesitate to prove his worth, bringing down even the royal family and the nobles who had grown too reckless. He considers her words, acknowledging that his opinion on the matter is irrelevant, as the Duke Beretta, the head of the Beretta kingdom, already holds the same view. There's nothing he can do about it. The world has seen many who pursued absolute strength, and it is because of them that the current situation persists. However, a solution has been found. It's a relief that the fault lies with those who went against the current of the age, and it is a joyous news. "It's okay." A red-haired man addresses him, stating that he has brought the news. Davy, now in a green coat, looks up, asking if it is Hope. The man confirms, adding that he heard the demon king of the Western continent had manifested. Davy, now in a red coat, sits in contemplation, processing the gravity of the situation. He then kneels, acknowledging that he is undeserving, as he went against the current of the age, but it is still joyous news. A queen, her blonde hair flowing, poses a question to an unseen figure, her red fan held delicately, asking if they do not think so. Receiving a deferential, "Yes, your majesty," very joyous, indeed. She presses further, her eyes remaining closed, a faint smile playing on her lips as she asks if what they say is true. Davy, seated opposite her, confirms, "Of course, it is," while internally cursing the situation, acknowledging the fragile nature of a child's happiness. In the grand hall, a red-haired man reports to the queen, stating that Duke Beretta will handle matters, and that a report must be filed with the Veltaz kingdom, assuring her there's no need for her direct involvement. The queen, looking down from her throne, dismisses Davy, suggesting he must be exhausted after his long journey and should rest. He bows, responding, "As you will, your majesty," while his thoughts drift to the cryptic initials, DMV. As he turns to leave, the queen's voice stops him, commanding him to stay for a moment. It has taken almost half a year for these events to unfold. He informs the queen that he has been awake since she summoned him, marking the first time in half a year they have spoken. A man with a distinguished mustache then asks if he resents him, to which Davy replies that there is no need for him to lie. The silence in the grand throne room stretches, leaving one to wonder how long it has truly been since their last meaningful conversation. Davy observes that his companion seems to have caught wind of things through the head chamberlain, and the man confirms that he knew, acknowledging Davy's sharp senses. Davy muses that he was right, reflecting on the woman who once promised not to interfere with his affairs, and how she must have changed after half a year. He admits that he may not be the most well-informed father, before his father interrupts, asking if he wished to see him. Davy confesses that he has been thinking all this time, and there is something he needs to say. He thanks his father for coming to him, a sentiment that clearly surprises the older man. Kneeling before him, Davy pleads for his mother's life, but his father's internal monologue reveals a chilling truth. He was already informed of her murder. Kneeling before his father, Davy listens as the man coldly states that his mother's condition was not a disease, but a curse of poison, before Davy cries out, "Enough, father, please." His father continues, explaining that guardian spirits are merely a matter of money from the start, but Davy vehemently denies it, pleading once more. The man's words cut deep, demanding that Davy reveal the truth. His father then shifts the blame, stating he isn't the one responsible, and that Davy's mother chose to let go of her own hand. A silent question hangs in the air, a tormenting thought for Davy. How could his father abandon the mother he once loved? His father, calm and collected, reveals that the queen convinced him, and to stabilize the kingdom, he chose to let go of his mother's hand and remarry the enemy. Davy's face contorts in anguish, accepting the blame himself, and declares his utter disinterest in his father's new romance. His father, still seated, looks away, musing that he only wanted to live and felt nothing at all, for even if one lived for 1,000 years, reminiscence would come and go like a dream. He remembers his mother's desperate calls for him, even as she succumbed to the poison, a memory that left an indelible scar on his soul, no matter how much he tried to numb himself to emotions. She had whispered, "Forgive me," as tears streamed down her face, and that was how she died. His father's voice cuts through the memory, explaining his ambition to become a king who could truly understand, a king who could achieve anything. He had been powerless then, lacking knowledge, unable to be a great king or a good father, for a king's position did not grant every wish. Davy listens, his father's words echoing his goal to become a king who could truly comprehend, a goal he believed he would achieve in the near future. His father's voice continues, revealing the true nature of his request. Davy remains silent, absorbing the weight of his father's ambition and the implications of what he is about to ask. A quiet realization dawns on him, a fragile hope blooming like a lily, that his father had not completely forgotten about his mother after all. Suddenly, a maid interrupts the tense atmosphere, addressing him as "Your Majesty" and reporting that they are stopping the queen's carriage. He considers his father's ambition, but internally asserts, "But not me. If a king abandons his family for the kingdom, and if a father is so." His father's voice echoes, declaring, "Then I shall become a king." A document is then placed firmly onto a table. The king continues, questioning, "A barren potion that makes people go mad." The maid responds with a respectful, "Yes, Your Majesty." He firmly states, "I won't receive it even if I am going to die." Again, the maid confirms, "Yes, Your Majesty." A heavy, ornate door swings open with a distinct click, revealing a new path. Elena questions, her voice tinged with concern. In those days, were they going to be able to do anything? Davy replies, "I was able to learn what I wanted to." She presses on, "You, whose body was filled with a barren potion." The sound of a lock clicking accompanies her words, as Davy retorts, "It didn't matter if my body was filled with a barren potion. I was still able to learn." Another click sounds, and Elena concedes, "Goodness, it's not something to everyone." "That's true." Davy reiterates, "Still, I was able to learn what I wanted to. Elena chuckles. Ah, I'll be sure to make sure no one knows, ha. She then bids him farewell. Well, Your Highness, have a good day. A gentle breeze rustles, and Davy, now alone, asks himself, now then, shall we get going? He stands on a high bridge, gazing out at a sprawling city that twinkles under the light of two distinct moons, one a soft blue, the other a vibrant crimson. With a deep breath, he resolves, time to dive into a rabbit's burrow. News spreads quickly through the kingdom, with whispers of the queen's disappearance reaching even her brother, Duke Albert. Indeed, she has vanished without a trace, and it's noted that her personal maid also disappeared just days prior. Davy receives the grim report that not a single trace of the missing princess could be found, a heavy sigh escaping him as he processes the dire situation. Meanwhile, Ms. Maid stands over a map, confirming the unsettling truth. Both the queen and the princess have indeed vanished. A mysterious blood letter, addressed to whoever might come to save its author, is discovered, its dark script hinting at a desperate plea written with the blood of a black dragon. Davy, his resolve hardening, declares his intention to bring back both the missing royals and Shirley. Ms. Maid, meanwhile, holds a handful of red berries, her thoughts focused on a child who is still alive. As Davy ponders the implications of leaving the situation as it is, he muses that the princess will be a bombshell, while Ms. Maid calmly asserts that he should simply leave the matter to her. A new presence emerges, a woman once regarded as a class entirely her own, her form adorned with skeletal chains and dark energy. Most agents knew instinctively that this woman was dangerous, her eyes glowing with an ominous, pinkish-purple light. Davy, sensing her arrival, could only think that her mana far exceeded that of any saint or grand wizard he had ever encountered, a chilling realization that something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, he was thrown backward, his body hitting the ground with a sickening thud and crack, his mind reeling as he desperately wondered why his magic wasn't working. Sweat beaded on his brow as he cried out in utter frustration, his efforts to cast spells proving futile. Something was indeed terribly wrong, as he lay defeated amidst the shattered remnants of his magical defenses, the soft sound of approaching footsteps echoing in the silence. Looking up, he saw a red line of energy extending towards him as the woman's voice cut through the air, asking him what he would do now. She stood over him, her tone dripping with condescension, explaining that standing up would be quite the problem for him. With a final, defeated thud, Davy remained sprawled on the ground, utterly helpless. Still pinned and overwhelmed, he lets out a pained cry as the shadowy figure looms over him, her form radiating a faint purple glow. Her grip firm around his neck, the mysterious woman questions his very nature, asking if he is truly human, or perhaps something else entirely. Despite his predicament, Davy defiantly demands to know why she stands outside, seemingly unconcerned by the dangers of the rift. As she continues to tower over him, he desperately calls out for protection, his voice echoing in the desolate space. A cold, dismissive tone in her voice, the woman declares that no one will come to his aid. Meanwhile, a fleeting thought or memory crosses the mysterious woman's mind, as she recalls a past interrogation, wondering who could have sent her to this place, and what dire consequences might follow if her mission continues. Back in the present, Davy's mind races, trying to identify his attacker, considering if it could be the Rune Guild or even the royal family, but quickly dismissing the latter, knowing they wouldn't have had enough time to complete such a ritual in a single day. If not them, then only one other possibility comes to mind, the headquarters. As the shadowy figure's purple aura intensifies, she poses a chilling question, asking him directly if he wishes to live. Still held captive, Davy Orwain struggles against his unseen tormentor, who continues her relentless interrogation, demanding information in exchange for his life. She dismisses any notion of formal procedures, implying that the information she seeks is not something he would willingly divulge through official channels. His hand clenches, a desperate plea escaping his lips as he cries out, begging her to simply state her terms, promising to give her whatever she desires. A chilling voice responds, acknowledging his insistence with a cold, almost amused tone. Davy's face contorts in a pained grimace, a single expletive escaping him as the antagonist's true demands are laid bare. She wants the list of all those who died on behalf of the headquarters, those who died because of the headquarters, and finally, the list of those who died because of him. He looks up, his voice strained as he attempts to justify his actions, arguing that he kept hundreds alive to protect others, then challenges her directly, asking about her own contributions. But his defiance crumbles, his eyes widening in despair as a faint blue aura begins to emanate around him, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek as he mutters a broken denial. The blue energy intensifies around his bowed form as he kneels, utterly defeated, a chilling realization dawning upon him that he is already lost. His eye widens, a flicker of terror crossing his features as the words sink in. Meanwhile, two figures stand silhouetted against a window, one assuring the other that their current efforts are sufficient, while the second, an expert in espionage, senses a deeper deception at play. This expert, a master of his craft, questions his subordinate, his gut instinct screaming that something is amiss. Back with Davy, his hand trembles, blue energy particles swirling around him as he struggles to comprehend the impossible truth, his breath catching in his throat. The expert in espionage, now in a different location, reacts with a burst of surprise, exclaiming at the revelation of a master assassin operating within the kingdom. He stands over a table, gripping the shoulder of a subordinate, his expression intense as he processes the implications. A stack of ancient scrolls thuds onto his surface, each one likely filled with vital, yet potentially misleading, information. The expert in espionage sits amidst the scattered documents, his gaze sweeping over the trashy papers, aware that much of the intelligence could be deliberately falsified. The conversation continues, delving into the possibility of other kingdoms existing in hidden dimensions, raising the question of whether this new information leads down a rabbit hole of endless mysteries. A mysterious woman with long purple hair muses that while it may not be part of the world she knows, it is still a world, likening it to tunnels connecting different dimensions. Meanwhile, Davy Orwain, his expression thoughtful, considers that it might not be wise to reveal everything to him, and that he should distance himself as much as possible. The implications of this new knowledge hang heavy in the air, eliciting a sharp gasp of realization. Just like pieces on a chessboard, the narration reminds that no matter how powerful an individual may be, there will always be political enemies to contend with. Framed by an ornate crest, a distinguished man with long white hair and a beard appears, his gaze distant. He recalls his late mother's night, and how she often spoke of monsters in her dreams, identifying himself as Marquis Patrizzi. Marquis Patrizzi's eyes widen in shock, a sudden realization dawning on him, as he urgently calls out for his butler. His voice echoes through the study, the sound of his urgent plea filling the room. From a grand balcony, Davy Orwain looks down, questioning who has dared to enter his territory, reflecting on Duke Beretta's life of endless prosperity, and wondering where the phrase about such a life originated. He considers if this nightly visit is truly worth the effort, his gaze fixed on the city below. A surprised expression crosses his face as he asks what is happening, while Ms. Maid lets out a soft groan from below. He then asks what she desires, though he quickly dismisses the question, knowing she already understands his intentions. Ms. Maid reaches out, stating that hearing it in person is meaningless, and that it truly is of no consequence. Davy's thoughts drift to a simple, ideal life. Keeping safe, having enough to eat, a roof over his head, avoiding grand adventures, and living a long, healthy life. He admits this has always been his wish since becoming royalty, but quickly clarifies that he isn't expressing that desire at this very moment. Ms. Maid looks up, questioning if it seems that way, then firmly states that it does not, and he should know that. Davy then declares his intention to make his kingdom rich, a small kingdom with a long history, which he vows to enrich. Ms. Maid's voice echoes, wondering what special creation he envisions, and what he thinks of the Crown Prince of Advanced City, to which he acknowledges it as quite a big goal. She presses further, asking what he means, then muses that the journey itself is unforgettable, not merely the destination. He clarifies that his ambition isn't simply to enrich his kingdom, to which she retorts that it might be quicker to just become king. Davy, now visible, asserts that a true king cannot afford to live comfortably, prompting her to question if managing a territory is truly any different. He emphatically agrees, then reflects that while shortcuts exist for building a kingdom, none apply to his own path. He is determined to make it a place he can always return to. In the grand hall, before the seated monarchs, Prince Davy stands as a symbol of his people's pride and blessing, a possessor of a stigmata. The queen, fanning herself delicately, ponders why no award has been bestowed upon him. She muses on the magnitude of his merit, her expression thoughtful. The court remains assembled, the atmosphere tense with unspoken expectations. It is then revealed that Prince Davy has already received a territory, and with his health now restored, the question arises of sending him there to be of assistance. As the queen walks away with Duke Albert, she wonders aloud about her sudden concern for the first prince, finding it unusual that she would involve herself with him. Her expression hardens, a chilling resolve in her eyes as she thinks, I have to get him. Meanwhile, Prince Davy stands calmly beside Elena, unaware of the queen's true intentions, a planned assassination attempt, her best final smiley, and best friend merely a facade. She had intended to have him killed and make it look like an accident upon his return, but the emperor's involvement has complicated her sinister plot. The queen stands beside the king, her hand resting on his arm, but her mind is far away, consumed by her sinister machinations. She recalls how the emperor had dispatched his knights to protect the prince, making him untouchable, a fact that still gnaws at her. A chilling thought crosses her mind. If her plot were ever discovered, her own head would be forfeit. Fighting against the emperor is an impossibility, she concludes, realizing her current approach is hopeless, but a new, more subtle path emerges in her thoughts. There is only one way to truly eliminate the prince's stigmata. It involves a divine tool, a relic of immense power. Lying in her bed, she muses that this very tool could be used to finally rid herself of him. She pens a letter to her brother, Duke Albert, urging him to act quickly, for time is short, and he must find the holy sword. Meanwhile, Duke Albert, surrounded by other nobles, echoes his sister's sentiment, declaring his sole desire is to eliminate the prince. Elsewhere, Elena, lost in thought, reveals that the crown prince has been actively seeking the holy sword as a solution, and she yearns to help him lawfully, driven by her affection. As the queen continued to scheme, her elaborate gown draped around her, she mused on her next move, her gaze fixed on an unseen point as she considered the implications of her previous actions. She confided in her brother, Duke Albert, that she had deliberately omitted a crucial detail. I didn't mention that the holy sword would be truly agreed upon, which is why, she began, to which the Duke affirmed, that's true. Her eyes narrowed with cold resolve as she continued, it may not be an easy task, but it is necessary to remove that prince. The Duke, holding a fan, reacted with surprise, questioning her intent. What? Grab everything, huh? You think so? The queen's thoughts, however, were far more aggressive, her mind seething with frustration over the prince's continued existence. Meanwhile, a formal announcement echoed through the palace. The command, Your Majesty, has returned. Prince Davy, standing by a window, simply acknowledged the news, a quiet, I expected it, escaping his lips. The Queen and Duke Albert then departed, the Duke lamenting the situation that forced his daughter into a marriage, and the Queen's thoughts turning to the holy sword, believing it wouldn't be necessary if the palace itself wasn't a facade. From a distance, Marquis Patrizzi and Elena de Fallon watched them go, the Marquis's voice carrying a clear directive. Received and prove to us your worth. I shall do as you command, Davy states, his voice echoing slightly in the vast hall. But this isn't like I'm doing nothing, he adds, as a small, purple-haired figure perched on his shoulder chimes in. He's saying that he's going to do it eventually. His gaze fixed on the distant throne, Davy muses, even if he didn't do this, it would be left on my own. Now that I'm done, there's no reason for me to stay any longer, he declares, while the small figure observes. It seems that those two have plans of their own. With a subtle smirk, Davy remarks, but they're already dancing in the palm of my hand. Good, so what you believe would be the time to depart. I shall depart as soon as preparations are complete, he continues, his companion adding. Everything has gotten complicated. A hint of gravity in his tone, Davy says, because of what happened, their lives may even be lost. If the kingdom is going to be ruined, then it's better to let it go to ruin. His expression resolute, he concludes, reformation will need to be done before the next king ascends. There's no way I can give up this reality to others, Davy states firmly, his small companion agreeing. If I get a chance to face my enemy in the meantime, that'll be a bonus. From a grand estate, a blue-haired figure and Ms. Maid walk away, their departure marked by a soft sound. As Amy, her voice filled with sorrow, asks her brother why he must leave, clinging to his hand as he apologizes for his impending absence. Davy, with a gentle smile, assures his sister that he will go to the frontier to save countless people, leaving the capital in her care, promising to return in time, though he will be gone for a while. Amy, her heart heavy, reaches out to him once more, a soft sound escaping her as she calls out his name. Her gaze falling to the floor, she questions if he truly intends to abandon her to the queen's schemes, confessing her fear of facing it all alone. Davy offers a final, gentle smile, acknowledging the harsh realities of royal life. Meanwhile, the blue-haired figure and Ms. Maid continue their journey away from the estate, their footsteps echoing softly. Inside, a grand chandelier hangs silently, as a voice calls out Amy's name. From above, the blue-haired figure and Ms. Maid are seen departing, a narration declaring that he will go to the frontier, save countless people, and upon his return, he will become the king, a request met with disbelief. He hums softly, his mind still processing the implications of his past life, the sheer scope of it all, encompassing, he muses, everything. Turning to his companion, he explains that if she were to mention his name, they would grant her request without a moment's hesitation. He then reflects on his own father, who possessed a similar battle-ready disposition. So, if it was something he had said in his past life, he wonders if there is a similar concept or phenomenon in this current world. With a knowing look, Ms. Maid confirms, so it may be so. As he walks away, a thought crosses his mind, that to him, it's the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction, something one can never tire of. The purple-haired woman watches his retreating figure, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Later, a wide grin spreads across the young man's face as he exclaims, "Haha, man, what an honor for our family." His formal attire, neatly tied, hints at the importance of the occasion. A stack of documents is swiftly processed, the sound of papers rustling indicating the rapid pace of events. That was quick, a voice notes. His sister, Amy, looks on with concern, asking if this is truly all there is, while he reassures her that their family's honor will not be left behind, conveying it as if talking to himself. A document, bearing the name SRYW, is stamped with a decisive thud. Ms. Maid, observing from afar, lets out a soft, almost imperceptible sound. She presents something for his inspection, prompting him to examine it closely. A soft exclamation escapes him as he takes in the sight. Accursed land, huh? She muses, her gaze fixed on him. So you had something to do with this on you. What an unbiased judgment, she remarks, a low, amused chuckle following her words.